Nor is a hardworking young man who has always wanted to be an adventurer, but due to him being a failure and his ungodly lack of talent, he was only ever able to learn one basic skill: parry. Nor has always been a hard worker. Even as a kid, he would do everything he could to help out his mom since she was really sick at the time. After handing her a cup of water, Nor needs to go feed the goats for the day, so he's going to take them up to the hills, but before he goes, his mom reminds him that he shouldn't go past the rocks that have been laid out, and Nor promises to be careful. He says he will also get some wild rabbits and nuts for dinner, and his mom is happy to have such a good kid, but she knows she isn't going to last much longer, so she calls Nor back to her, and while wiping the dirt from his face, she apologizes for not being able to do anything for him as his mother, but she asks Nor to please live life the way he wants to after she's gone. That night, Nor was making dinner, but as he goes to give his mom some soup, to his horror finds that she has passed on. Nor is deeply saddened by this, but after burying her, he decides to fulfill his mother's final wish and live his life for her sake. Nor doesn't really have any big ambitions, but he works hard to keep up his daily routine. Although it has gotten a lot more lonely in the house. Late at night, Nor is searching the top of his shelf when he accidentally falls over and grabs an old book. This is the same one his father used to read to him back when he was alive, about an adventurer and his many outstanding adventures across the lands. Dragon slaying, learning magic, and even dispelling a curse. Remembering these stories gives Nor a new goal to achieve. So for the next day, Nor dumps a lot of hay for the animals to eat while he's gone. And then he visits his parents' graves to tell them that he has found an ambition to strive towards, so he is going to do everything he can to become one. He says his final goodbye to his parents' graves and his childhood home before turning to embark on his adventure and crossing the barrier around his home for the first time. After leaving his home, he spends the night out in the woods, and by the next day, he has finally made it to the big city. He walks up to the city gates to ask about the location of the Adventurers Guild, and the guards are nice enough to point him in the right direction. Nor walks through the gates and is amazed by the sight he sees before him. This is more people than he has ever seen in his entire life, and they are all living in the same place. While walking through the streets, Nor bumps into an adventurer, and his eyes instantly light up even more as he remembers why he came here to begin with. Nor eventually arrives at the Adventurers Guild, and he is ready to make his dream come true. But the only thing standing in his way is the buff receptionist, who tells him that he is too young to become an adventurer and should just head home before his parents get worried. However, seeing as both of Nor's parents are 6 feet under, becoming an adventurer is the only thing Nor can aspire to do. The receptionist now understands Nor's situation a bit better, so he goes up to him and says Nor can become an adventurer. Most new adventurers aren't as young as him, but if he really wants to do it, he's not going to stop him. However, the receptionist has one condition. Nor must first go to a training school so that he can acquire some useful skills. It doesn't matter if it's swordsmanship, magic, or archery. Nor just needs to learn a useful skill. Nor is happy that he is being given a chance, so he immediately heads over to the training school to begin learning. As he arrives at the gate, he decides that he will learn swordsmanship, since the story from his adventurer book said the adventurer used a sword to slay a dragon in a single swing. Nor begins his training arc, but as he is practicing, a random background character unlocks his hidden potential. Nor sees this and is just motivated to work even harder, but by the time a few months have passed, all the other background characters have unlocked their abilities, and Nor is the only one who can't get anything special to happen. Eventually, the instructor tells Nor that he should stop, but Nor pleads with him for a little more time to practice. However, the instructor tells him that no amount of time is going to get him a sword skill. It has been months of training, and while it's unfortunate, if Nor hasn't gotten a skill by now, then he will likely never get one, so he should stop wasting his time. The only thing he has managed to learn this entire time is how to parry attacks, so the instructor advised Nor to choose a different profession since his talent may lie elsewhere. Nor is disappointed that he can't become a swordsman, but he takes his instructor's advice and goes to a different training school to learn how to become a warrior. But after several months of grueling training, all Nor has been able to accomplish is achieving a slightly better physique than before. The instructor can't let him continue training any further in this profession, otherwise it could become dangerous to his health. Nor still doesn't give up yet and tries becoming a hunter instead, but even that doesn't work as he destroys all the bows he tries to handle. Nor keeps trying various different professions, but no matter what he tries, he is only ever able to learn the weakest skills and is ultimately faced with the reality that he has no talents whatsoever. He returns to the Adventurers Guild to tell the receptionist what happened and the fact that Nor spent 3 months at every training school in the city, yet didn't manage to learn a single profession sounds impossible to him. However, while he feels bad for Nor, he can't let Nor become an adventurer when he doesn't have the skills necessary to survive as one. Nor returns home, having failed to achieve what he set out to do, but even though he knows that he has no talent for adventuring, he is still determined to overcome that by training even harder than before. He carves a practice sword out of wood so that he can begin his new training routine, and while he didn't manage to learn anything professions, he did learn a sword skill at the beginning, so he's going to keep training that skill in hopes that he may eventually unlock a new skill. He vows to train every morning, afternoon, and night, but even after a full year of training, Nor still hasn't managed to acquire a new skill yet. However, he is now able to parry 10 attacks at a time, so he knows he is at least improving a little. 3 years later, Nor's training has improved his parry skill to the point where he can now parry over 100 swords at once, yet he still hasn't gotten any new skills. So he continues training day and night until his sword ends up shattering in his hands. After 10 more years of this training routine, Nor's parry skill has developed to the point that he is now capable of the Mikiri parry and can parry an entire forest with one arm. But even with his godly parry skills, he still hasn't been able to acquire any new skills. At this point, he realizes that no amount of training is going to unlock a new skill for him. So Nor decides to give it one last try and head to the Adventurers Guild to see if he meets their requirements now. But as he gets there and writes down his skills, aside from parry, everything else is pretty much useless. She asks him if these are really all the skills he has, and Nor answers yes. So the receptionist suggests that Nor take a look at the training program so he can get some more useful skills. But Nor tells her that he has already gone to every training school in the city, and he hasn't been able to gain any useful skills in spite of it. The receptionist apologizes, but there is nothing she can do to help him register since his skills don't meet the criteria for registration. Just then, the former receptionist, Turned, who's now the guild master, comes out of the back to see what's going on, and Nor immediately recognizes him. But the man takes a minute to remember who Nor is since grew so big. Once he finally remembers Nor, he sits down with Nor and asks how he has been. So Nor tells him everything he has done since he last met the man, which was literally nothing but training. However, through all that training, Nor was only really able to improve his parry skill a little. The guild master tells Nor that there are different ranks of adventurers, and to become an E-rank adventurer, Nor would need to have at least 2 useful skills. But since he doesn't meet that criterion, he can't become an E-rank adventurer. However, that doesn't mean there is no way for him to become an adventurer, as there is a rank below E-rank, which just requires you to have 2 functioning brain cells. Nor is excited to hear this, but the good master tells him that there are conditions for this rank, meaning he is forbidden from taking on any quests that involve killing monsters or leaving the city to gather items. That restricts him to quests that are basically miscellaneous tasks that no one else wants to do. No one has ever been dumb or desperate enough to agree to become F rank, but there's a first time for everything as Nor asks the guild master to sign him up for it. The guild master doesn't think it's a good idea, but Nor is so insistent that he caves and gives him an F rank license. Nor is really happy and immediately runs off to complete his first quest by using his physical enhancement to carry a ton of goods for delivery. He also uses the rest of his weak skills to help him in day-to-day quests, and he finds it to be very fulfilling. He has finally achieved his dream of becoming an adventurer and being of use to the people around him, even if it's just F rank. So while he still dreams of being something more than a glorified errand boy, he is happy with what he has. By the next day, we see Nor start the day off by single-handedly clearing out a gutter for an old lady, after which he begins his construction job by carrying a metric ton of cement on his shoulders and making it look like lightweight. So by the end of the day, the construction foreman thanks Nor for all his hard work since they are way ahead of their usual schedule because of him. However, while the foreman is talking, Nor notices something coming from the dungeon behind him, and as he listens closely, he hears a girl screaming for help, and he's not going to act like he didn't hear her. So he starts sprinting to offer his aid. As he enters the dungeon, he finds a girl and her party being attacked by a huge minotaur, but Nor mistakes it for a big cow. He's never seen a cow this big up close, so Nor is stunned as the minotaur begins closing in on the girl and her party. The knights all try their best to defend her, but it's too late to try to escape now. So one of the knights just pushes the princess out of the way, but that results in him getting chopped in half. Nor tries to check on the fallen knight, but with him missing half his body, there's no way he survived that hit. The minotaur continues slaughtering all the knights until the only one left alive is the girl, and she is currently unable to move, so if Nor doesn't do something soon, she will die as well. He picks up a sword and grabs a rock to throw at the minotaur. This gets its attention, so the minotaur charges at him, and as it tries to stab Nor with its horns, Nor performs a perfect parry and sends it flying into a random building in the dungeon. The minotaur gets back up and begins striking at Nor with his axe, so Nor is forced to continuously parry the attacks, because a single direct hit would kill him. Normally, a person would only parry attacks in order to create an opening for a counterattack. However, Nor has no attack skill, so he is stuck on defense. The minotaur suddenly remembers the girl is still alive, so it goes over to finish her off. However, Nor isn't going to let that happen. So he uses his feather step skill to quickly get in front of her and counter the axe strike. This causes his sword to shatter, but that isn't going to stop Nor, since he has made up his mind that even if he can't be an amazing hero, he will always stand and protect the weak. So as the Minotaur attempts to strike again, Nor uses the broken sword to perform a Mikiri counter and sends the Minotaur's axe flying back at it and cutting the Minotaur's head off. Nor is relieved that he managed to win the fight and save the girl, but as she gets up and thanks him, Nor doesn't want to accept any credit for it and leaves without even telling her his name. Nor still thinks of himself as a failure of an adventurer, and he is under the impression that the monster he just fought was just an overgrown cow, so in his mind, if he is still struggling this much with a cow, then he still has a lot of training to do. A while later, a cleanup crew is brought in to move the Minotaur, along with all the people who died fighting it, and Princess Lindbergh feels personally responsible for all their deaths. Just then, her knight Inns rushes up to her and apologizes for not accompanying her when she came out to the dungeon, since it is her job to protect Lyn, but Lyn tells her it's not her fault. This was just meant to be a basic trial for the right to succeed the throne, so it wouldn't have made sense to force her knight to accompany her. Just then, another knight tells Lyn that they need to return to the castle soon since Lord Rain wants to have a word with her, and she already knows what this is going to be about. Back at the castle, Lord Rain has just finished speaking with Lyn to understand what happened to her, but none of it makes sense to him. The only way a Minotaur could have ended up in that area of the dungeon was if it was magically summoned by someone, and the knight agrees with that assumption. He believes that the cause of the incident has something to do with a merchant who was found dead at the scene with a ring, and upon inspection, it was discovered that the magic stone of the ring has an unusually high level of purity, and that's not something that can be sold on the market normally. A Minotaur is a threat A-level demon, so no random rich guy could buy something that could control one, and the crest on the ring indicates that it originated from the magical empire of Doritos, so Rain believes they were behind this since they've always had beef with him. But even then, the fact that they blatantly attempted to assassinate Lyn and didn't even bother to get rid of the evidence, it must mean they are trying to bait Rain into starting a war, also they can gain control of the dungeon. That aside, Rain also has to think about the guy who saved Lyn, since according to the reports, he was able to defeat the Minotaur in seconds with nothing but a broken sword, and on top of that, the castle spies tried to follow him as he was leaving, but he literally vanished before their eyes. Rain can't believe what he's hearing, so he is really interested in figuring out who this mysterious warrior is. Meanwhile, Nord has just returned to the guild, and the guild master is surprised that he is still alive. He heard about a demon appearing in the dungeon, and it was right next to the construction site Nor was working on, so he thought Nor might have gotten himself killed. Nor apologizes for worrying him and explains that he was being followed by some shady people last night, so he had to shake them off and went home without reporting what happened. The guildmaster says Nor is lucky to be alive since a Minotaur is a demon that is so strong that even an A-rank adventurer would instantly die if they had to face it. Nor still doesn't realize that the guildmaster is talking about the same cow he killed, so he asks what happened to this demon, and the guildmaster tells him it was taken out by some mysterious man. Nor remains oblivious to the fact that he is the mysterious man in question, so he just carries in with a report for the jobs he completed today. The guildmaster gives him his payment, but he reminds Nor that he is better off just getting a regular job since he would get paid more that way, but Nor doesn't care how much money he makes as long as he gets to be an adventurer. Just then, Lyn shows up behind Nor and says she is glad she finally found him. She apologizes for invading his privacy, but she really wanted to meet him again, so she used her long-distance detection skill to find him. Nor assumes she must be a thief-class adventurer if she has a detection skill, but Lyn says she's actually a magician. She just has skills in all the different classes, even if they are only basic. The guildmaster and the other patrons are starting to recognize Lyn, so she asks if she and Nor can talk outside, but before he does, the guildmaster grabs Nor and asks him what he did for Lyn to be talking to him. Nor says he hasn't done anything illegal, meaning he shouldn't be in trouble or anything, so the guildmaster tells him to go with Lyn and to make sure he doesn't do anything dumb. Outside, Lyn conceals herself and Nor with one of her skills so no one can see them, and once they are finally in a secluded spot, Lyn apologizes once more for barging in on Nor when a man with his power would probably be pretty busy. Nor says it's fine, so Lyn begins by thanking him once more for what he did, because not only did he save her life, but he also saved the lives of countless people in the nation. Nor doesn't think he deserves sick high praise since all he did was take down a cow. In fact, he is pretty sure Lyn could have handled it by herself if he hadn't shown up. No idea how he drew that conclusion when he saw several knights get murdered by this same cow, so Lyn tries to make him understand that she would have definitely died if he hadn't come to her rescue. Nor still doesn't think he did much to help her, but he accepts her thanks. However, as Lyn says she wants to offer him a reward to show her gratitude for him helping her out, Mort tells her that a thank you is all he needs, so she doesn't have to give him anything else. Lynn insists on giving Nora a reward, and her father is also asked to meet Nora as well, but Nora seriously doesn't want a reward. Lynn tries one more time to get him to accept, but Nora is very firm on his no reward policy. Lynn is getting desperate and asks Nora if there is anything she can help him with, or even she could even get him a territory of his own, but Nora just says he doesn't want it. Lynn starts crying and tells that Nora has to accept her gratitude, and she's not moving from this spot until Nora says he will accept something from her. Nora remembers a time when he used this same tantrum technique to get a cleric to train him, and since he doesn't want Lynn to end up standing here for hours, he ends up agreeing to meet with her father, but he still doesn't want any extravagant gifts. Lynn is happy to hear it, so she says Nora should follow close behind her so she can use her concealment skills to make sure no one spots them. Eventually, Nora is brought to Lynn's house, and as he is led inside, Lynn asks him for his name, which Nora is happy to provide, but Nora still doesn't know who Lynn is, so she apologizes for being rude and immediately introduces herself as Lindbergh Clays, but that's a really long name, so she's usually called Lynn. After seeing this house, Nora now realizes that Lynn wasn't joking when she said her family was wealthy, so it makes sense why the guildmaster was worried about him making a fool of himself. As they are walking, they run into Ains, and Lynn is happy to see her, so she runs up to her and asks where her father is. Ains tells her that her father is currently having a meeting with Rain, so he is a little busy now, but that aside, she wants to know who the man standing over there is. Lynn explains that Nora is the one who saved her life, so Ains says she will lead them to Lynn's father. Nora has never heard of a royal knight, so he assumes Ains must be the family maid, one that really loves wearing armor for some reason. You can also tell that Ains doesn't like him for some reason, but he has no idea why. As they are walking, they come across a dude chilling by the window, and as soon as he notices them, he gets up and asks what Ains is up to, and who this random guy is. Ains tells Gilbert to put his spear away since Nora is Lynn's guest, and it is very rude to point weapons at guests. Gilbert realizes that Nora must be the person who saved Lynn's life, so he puts his weapon down and Ains asks him to accompany them to the room because she could use all the help she can get. Gilbert now has a bad impression of Nora, and Nora can already tell that things aren't going to end well for him at this rate, but he keeps walking. In the throne room, the king is in the middle of a meeting with Rain, and he is upset because it is clear that Doritas doesn't care about honoring their peace treaty. Rain has been expecting this ever since the last meeting with the king of Doritas, where he demanded that the rights to the dungeon be relinquished to him. The demand was obviously rejected, but ever since then, the king of Doritas has been plotting their downfall. Just then, Lynn and the others arrive in the throne room, and Lynn excitedly goes over to greet her brother and father. Ains and Gilbert kneel to show their respect for the king, but Nora keeps on walking. Rain notices that Lynn is wearing the disguised cloak, meaning she must have gone outside without permission, but she says she had to because there was no other way for her to find the man that saved her. The king realizes that she must be referring to Nora, and Nora apologizes for coming here in such a messy state, but Lynn wanted to come here as soon as possible. He also says he isn't an aristocrat or anything, so he isn't aware of the proper etiquette for situations like these, so he may accidentally say something rude, but the king tells him that he's fine with it since it is much easier to speak without having to worry about etiquette. The king extends his hand to Nora and formally thanks him for saving Lynn's life. Nora says it's no big deal, so a simple thank you is enough for him, but the king says he can't let Nora go without giving him a decent reward, so he says Nora can ask for any amount of money or land he wants. However, Nora still doesn't want anything. The king is taken aback, but he still raises the reward by offering Nora half of all the treasures they have acquired from the dungeon. Rain thinks a reward like that is too much to be given to a single man, but Nora still doesn't want it though. The king doesn't know what to give Nora since he keeps rejecting everything, so he goes over to his throne and picks up the sword hanging on it as a gift for Nora. Rain doesn't think it's a good idea to give away such a valuable sword, but the king says it's okay since he never uses it anymore and no one would find out as long as he replaces it with a replica. He hands it to Nora, and as soon as it is in Nora's hand, he can feel how heavy it is. From how Rain reacted, Nora can tell that the sword is worth a lot, and he doesn't want to accept any extravagant gifts, but the king says it's just something he picked up while he was still an adventurer, so it's fine for Nora to accept it. Nora agrees to accept it, so the king asks him to give it a test swing. Nora obliges and swings the sword in the air, generating a huge amount of force and surprising everyone around him. The king praises Nora for being able to swing the sword with one hand, but he also has a request to make. He wants Nora to help train Lynn on how to be an adventurer, but Nora says there's nothing he could possibly teach someone as talented as Lynn, and besides, Nora thinks Lynn should be the one to decide something like this for herself. After that, Nora thinks he should probably start heading home, and as he is leaving, he realizes something special about his sword. It is the perfect shape to fit inside the gutters that he usually cleans, so he is going to try it out tomorrow morning. Before he leaves, he's approached by Inns, and she says she wants to talk with him. First, she apologizes for her rude behavior earlier, as it was completely uncalled for, but Nor says he doesn't mind at all. Her job is to protect the Clay's family at any cost, so she is deeply grateful to Nor for saving the life of Lynn, and to express her gratitude, she promises to assist Nor if he ever needs help. Nor doesn't want to go back and forth with her about this, so he just accepts her offer and says he will ask her if he ever needs anything. That aside, Inns also warns Nor that he is never allowed to speak to the king so casually again, because even if the king allowed it for now, she will not let such disrespect slide next time. Nor says he understands, so Inns is in a good mood and asks him for his name, and upon hearing that his name is Nor, she seems oddly shocked. Nor asks if he did something wrong again, but Inns says it's nothing and takes her leave. Nor is about to leave as well, but he is stopped by Gilbert, who wants to challenge him to a fight. Rick follows him, but he is exhausted from all the running around today and just wants to head home, so he asks Gilbert what they are supposed to be doing. Just then, Nor realizes that they've arrived at the castle's training room, and Gilbert tells him that he wants to have a mock battle with Nor. Nor hasn't gotten to practice with another person since his days back in the training schools, so he's actually pretty enthusiastic about this. Gilbert walks up to the weapons rack and tells Nor that he's pretty well known in the royal capital, so he wants to see what the hero who saved Lynn is capable of in battle. And Nor is happy to accept since he sees it as a great chance to improve his skills. He personally doesn't think he will be able to beat Gilbert, but it's a good opportunity nonetheless, so Nor wants to make the most of it. A small crowd is gathered around them, and they feel sorry for the poor soul who chose to go up against Captain Gilbert. But as the match begins, Gilbert makes the first move, and this poor soul easily dodges it. Gilbert continues to attack, and while Nor is dodging his attacks, he remarks that Gilbert's moves are incredibly precise. He can only imagine the amount of training Gilbert had to do to get himself to this level. There's one thing he can't understand. If Gilbert is such a skilled adventurer, then why are his attacks so slow? Nor has never practiced with another person before, so he assumes that Gilbert must be moving slow intentionally since Nor is a novice adventurer. Nor calls for a timeout and tells Gilbert that he doesn't have to go easy on him that much. And while Gilbert was indeed holding back a little, he agrees to take things up a notch, so he charges at Nor with full force. His attacks are much faster now, but Nor still finds it odd that Gilbert is leaving himself wide open for a counterattack. Nor thinks there's no way Gilbert can possibly be this defenseless against him, so he assumes that Gilbert must be luring him in for a trap. Meanwhile, Gilbert doesn't understand why he can't land a single hit on Nor with his spear, so he tries using one of his signature moves on Nor, but while Nor is surprised, he simply jumps into the air to evade it, and when Gilbert tries to strike him mid-air, he just sucks underneath the attack. None of these attacks have made Nor so much as break a sweat, so he tells Gilbert that it's fine if he speeds up even more since he's been going way too slow. Gilbert's pride is wounded by that statement, and Nor is finally starting to realize that all this solo training might have actually made him strong, but all of a sudden, Gilbert uses his ultimate skill in an attempt to at least land one hit on Nor. But once the dust has settled, Nor has vanished and appears by Gilbert's side, and to Gilbert's surprise, Nor says he gives up. After that, Nor heads home for the day, and he's glad he made it out of there before things hit bad. But back at the training hall, Gilbert's subordinates are busy trying to come up with reasons why Gilbert is definitely still stronger than Nor, even though his ultimate move didn't work. But deep down, Gilbert knows that he lost in every way imaginable. He had had a talent for the spear ever since the first day he picked one up, so there was no one who could stand up to his power. The more he trained, the more powerful his techniques got, and the more strength he gained. But through it all, he felt nothing but boredom since he never found a worthy opponent for himself. He went around the kingdom in search of strong opponents, but after he has already defeated every warrior in this particular village, the village chief apologizes and says there was no one here to match his strength. The chief goes on to tell him that there are rumors going around about the relations between the kingdom and a foreign country collapsing, so they are calling for strong troops to prepare for the likelihood of war. So if Gilbert is lucky, he might end up meeting someone who can give him the challenge that he has been so desperately looking for. Well, Gilbert returned to the capital, and no single troop member was capable of standing up to him, and demon slaying was no longer a fun endeavor for him either, no matter how big the demon was. He was sick of being surrounded by weaklings. One day, while he was relaxing under a tree, his instructor walks up to him and asks why he looks so glum when he has just been crowned the Spear Sovereign. Even with a fancy title, Gilbert is still as bored as ever since he's surrounded by total weaklings. His instructor brings up that Inns is a strong person, and while Gilbert agrees that she is strong, it's more of a different kind of strength. So whenever they have mock battles, Gilbert always ends up being the definitive victor. He thinks things would be a lot more interesting if there were more competent people around like his instructor. And he knows his instructor must be bored as well, especially since he has to train a bunch of rookie adventurers who don't even measure up to the power in his pinky finger. The instructor admits that it is a bit boring, but he is tasked with defending the kingdom, and no matter how strong he is, he can't win an entire war by himself. Besides, he's sure that someday an adventurer will show up that surpasses him in strength. When Gilbert heard about a man who managed to defeat a minotaur by himself, he wanted to meet him personally, but Nor makes no sense at all. He showed no interest in the most lavish gifts the king had to offer, and he was so casual with the king that Gilbert had to respect him for it. While fighting Nor, Gilbert couldn't sense the power necessary to defeat a minotaur, but that doesn't change the fact that Nor was able to dodge all of his moves. Even when he busted out his supersonic spear strike, it still did nothing against Nor, while it would have been a guaranteed death sentence to any other person. On top of that, Nor forfeited the match out of nowhere. Gilbert assumes Nor did it out of courtesy since he didn't want to embarrass him in front of his subordinates. As Nor was leaving, Gilbert noticed a bunch of cracks in the floor, and he has no idea how they got here or what Nor did to cause them. But what he does know is that Nor was able to dodge his ultimate attack while he was at full power, so he has finally found truly worth opponent he has been searching for. As Nor walks home, he thinks about how foolish he was to think that he was strong. When Gilbert used his ultimate attack, even after Nor used his physical enhancement and feather step abilities, he was only able to barely evade the strike, and Gilbert must have been holding back just enough to prove a point since there's no way he would actually use a lethal move in a mock battle. He feels thankful to Gilbert for reminding him that he is still weak, so he is going to train even harder from now on. The next morning, Nor is busy with his usual gutter cleaning job, and he is using the legendary sword to do it. He is shocked at how well the sword works for this, since the gutters have never been so clean before, and thanks to the sword's durability, it hasn't gotten even slightly scratched after all Nor has done with it. However, once he's done with his gutter cleaning, he is left with nothing to do since his construction job got put on hold because of the incident in the dungeon. Since he is only allowed to accept F-rank jobs, if work in the royal capital ever dries up, there may be entire days that he will have nothing to do, and Nor doesn't want that to happen since his goal is to be useful to people. He considers starting a boat ride business and using the sword as an oar, but then he realizes that he would have to own a boat for that. He considers making pizzas, but then he would need an oven. He finally considers making a grill out of his sword, but that won't work either since he can only make a flame with his fingertips. Just then, Nor hears some rustling in the bushes, so he turns around and finds Lynn standing there. She apologizes for showing up like this, but she couldn't find him at the guild, so she asked the guild master where Nor would be. Nor understands, but he didn't tell the guild master his exact location, so Lynn must have used her tracking abilities to find him. Nor asks why Lynn is here, so she gets straight to the point and tells Nor that she has a special request to ask of him. She wants Nor to accept her as his page, but Nor has never even heard of a page before, so Lynn explains that it is an unpaid assistant who takes care of all of Nor's daily necessities in hopes of gaining some useful knowledge from him. She is fine with just being allowed to hang around Nor, and she promises that she won't cause him any trouble, but Nor still refuses. She asks if she has done something to offend Nor or if he thinks she is unreliable, but Nor tells her that's not the case. She tries to assure him that she can be of use since she has scored the highest marks in all 6 training schools, but her competence isn't the issue here. There's just nothing for Nor to teach her, and he doesn't need her to help him with his work either since he is perfectly capable of doing it on his own. Lynn tries to offer Nor a huge salary if he agrees to be her instructor, but he still doesn't care about money, so Lynn offers to let him use her to do whatever he wants. But Nor turns her down again. He really just doesn't have anything for Lynn to do, but she remains insistent and wants to prove to him that she can be useful. So she takes out her wand and says she's going to demonstrate her competence. She casts an ice spell to fire several icicles at herself, but before she gets hit, she uses a fire spell to destroy them. She tells Nor that this is the highest level of magic she can use, and in addition to that, she has also learned the secret skill of the thief class called Mistblade. She learned it directly from the Sovereign of Shadows, and it's strong enough to easily cut down a tree with one swing. Next up, she wants to show Nor her sword skill, so she sends a divine slash straight towards Nor, but he effortlessly evades. The damage that is done to the tree is proof of how powerful the move is, and it's even got bonus damage when used against undead monsters. She's about to show him more of her skills, but Nor tells her that he has seen enough. Lynn thinks this means he is willing to accept her as his page, but Nor still denies her request. Nor realizes Lynn must think he is someone who is worth studying under, but after seeing everything she is capable of doing, Nor honestly feels inferior compared to her. He tries telling her once more that there's nothing he can teach her. But Lynn takes that to mean that Nor thinks she is too weak to become his student. She asserts that her power has been acknowledged by all the 6 sovereigns, and she is sure she can be useful to Nor in some way if he lets her join him. Nora's point still isn't getting through, so he tells Lin that she possesses many amazing skills, but this is the current limit of Nora's skills. Lin is left speechless and leaves Nora alone for today, but as she's walking home, she recounts the story of a boy with no talent who went through all 6 training schools. People often thought this was nothing more than a made-up legend since most adults would crumble under the pressure of the rigorous training program at one school, let alone complete the courses at all 6. And Lin had thought it was a fake story as well, but she actually got to meet this person. Back when she was studying magic, Oaken showed her something interesting about the basic spell Tiny Flame. While the flame created is usually as small as a point, with enough practice, one can make the flame slightly bigger. It had no practical use to him, but he had been alive for 200 years at this point, so practicing the tiny flame became a hobby for him. Since she saw that, Lin has made several attempts to make her tiny flame slightly larger, but no matter what she does, it doesn't grow at all. It's something that requires tireless devotion over a long period of time, which is precisely why she was so shocked when Nora was able to create a massive tiny flame many times bigger than what Oaken could have ever done, and Oaken is the greatest wizard in the world. For Nora's skills to be at such a level means he far outclasses anything Lin could pull off, and it was all done through his own effort. However, all the spells Lin demonstrated were just things she had memorized. Nora had the power to defeat a Minotaur, yet he still lives a regular life without bragging or showboating, so Lin believes Nora is not only strong in body but also in mind. In the near future, she will be in a position to lead this kingdom alongside her brother and father, and the rule of the Clay's family is that those with royal blood must be strong, so she wants to learn how to attain strength like Nora's. So if Nora doesn't want to be her instructor, then she's just going to have to stalk him as much necessary until he agrees to train her. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, the prince is trying to complaining to himself because he doesn't understand why his father would gift the Black Blade to a random man of unknown lineage. The sword was acquired back when the king was still an adventurer, and on this particular trip, he was delving into the deepest corners of the dungeon with the 6 sovereigns. And while it was a long and dangerous quest, it eventually led them to locate the prime dungeon treasure. The blade is made of an unknown material that is stronger than anything the kingdom has ever seen, so regardless of the skills and powers that were used to test it, there wasn't even a single scratch on it, so the sword was dubbed an indestructible sword. The biggest question they had about it was how a weapon that's so resilient managed to end up in such bad shape, but those answers will never be found now that the king has given up the sword. But then again, the prince can understand the king's motives since the state of unrest within the kingdom has only gotten worse in recent months, so it is possible that the king is counting on Nora to bring some amount of change. At that same moment, Nora and Lin are out by a food stand, and Nora asks her if it is alright for her to be casually hanging out with him. But she says it's fine since she's acting as an adventurer right now, so she's free to do whatever she wants. In that case, Nora tells her that he was planning on heading to the guild after they've eaten, but he's still not comfortable with the student-slash-stalker relationship he has with Lin. He doesn't think he is someone worthy of being called a teacher, but Lin is following him everywhere. He goes like it's perfectly normal. Nora thinks if he takes on some of his usual errand quests from the guild, then sooner or later Lin should come to understand that Nora is just a regular dude and lose interest, but with how excited she looks to be following him, that doesn't seem likely. After lunch, Nora and Lin head to the guild, but the guildmaster is confused to see Nora casually hanging out with the princess, so he asks Nora what's going on. Lin reminds the guildmaster that while she is here, she is just an adventurer, so he shouldn't call her a princess. Guildmaster apologizes, but now he is even more confused than before, so he asks Nora about it. Nora says it's a really complicated story, but Guildmaster has been doing this job for long enough to know that he doesn't want to get involved in complicated subplots, so he drops the subject and asks Nora if he came here to get another quest. Nora confirms this and asks for one that 2 people can handle, so Guildmaster takes a look at the quests he has available, and since Lin will be joining Nora while she is Silver B rank, Nora now qualifies to take on a goblin hunting quest, which is a total shock to him. Goblin quests are a staple for new adventurers to test their skills, so he is really excited to be allowed to take on such a quest. Guildmaster says that normally Lin would be able to take this quest, or something higher level alone, but since Nora is F rank, this is the best they are allowed to have. Nora is happy to finally be getting a quest that isn't just labor, but he also feels kind of bad since this means he will be taking advantage of Lin's adventurer rank for his own personal gain. And up till now, he has been trying to get Lin to leave him alone, so he doesn't think he deserves to rely on her now. He asks Lin if she's okay with this, since Nora would be using her rank to accept this job, but Lin says it's fine since she is just happy to help in any way she can. Nora's glad to hear she's alright with it, even if he still has reservations about relying on a child, but since it's for the sake of one of his dreams, he is willing to go along with it and picks up his sword to head out. However, Guildmaster hasn't given Nora any information about the quest yet, so Nora has to come back in and ask where exactly he is supposed to be going. After finally approving the quest, Guildmaster points to a map and tells Nora that he and Lynn are meant to head to this area, and they are only allowed to report monsters that they've actually caught. The location is known as the Forest of Beasts, and as per guild rules, they need to bring back the right ears of the goblins they slay in order to get compensated. But then again, there have been reports that goblin populations have been dwindling, so in the event they don't manage to find any goblins, they're allowed to bring back some medicinal herbs or something instead. With that settled, Nora and Lynn head to the gatekeepers where their information needs to be reviewed, and after everything is verified, they are both allowed to leave on their quest. A while later, they've arrived in the Forest of Beasts, and this is Nora's first time seeing such dense vegetation, and they are different from the trees he usually sees in the southern forest. While on the topic of things Nora has never seen before, he asks Lynn if she can tell him a bit about goblins, since he would like to know what they are like before he encounters one. Lynn understands and begins telling him about how goblins are monsters that usually hunt small animals and gather fruits for food, but they are also known to attack humans. If left unchecked, their population could easily grow out of control, which is why the guild gives quests like these to help keep the goblin population under control. But goblins are also a valuable part of the forest's ecosystem, so it is best not to hunt them to extinction. Nora is grateful for the information, and he is also impressed with how much knowledge Lynn has about adventuring, but this just means there really isn't anything for him to teach her. As they head deeper into the forest, Lynn uses her search ability to scan for any nearby goblins, but she doesn't find anything nearby. Under normal circumstances, they should have already encountered at least one goblin, but it seems like the rumors about dwindling goblin numbers are true after all. While she didn't find any goblins, Lynn's scan did manage to pick up on a monster-like creature, but it's a bit far away. Since they don't have any other monsters to hunt, Nora agrees to go searching for this unknown monster. They start heading even deeper into the forest, and the further they go, the denser the trees get, giving the area an ominous vibe. This is the kind of location a goblin would love to hang around, but as they are walking, Lynn notices something strange as the presence of the monster they were tracking just disappears all of a sudden. They arrive at the location Lynn had previously sensed the monster, but as far as they can tell, there's nothing here. However, Nora notices a pair of dangling legs floating in the air, so Lynn casts an uncover spell, and it reveals a massive goblin in the middle of the woods. Nora asks what that thing is, and Lynn answers that she thinks it's a goblin, but she probably should have clarified that regular goblins don't have 10-pack abs, since now, Nora thinks all goblins are meant to be this big. The goblin picks up 2 trees to attack them with, and Lynn is absolutely freaking out, but Nora just thinks she's scared because she doesn't have much combat experience. However, the real reason she is freaking out is because that thing is a goblin emperor. A goblin emperor is a monster created when scientists lock a goblin in a gym with nothing but protein powder and steroids. And on top of already being ridiculously jacked, this one is capable of eating other goblins and ingesting their strength to grow stronger. Nora speaks up and tells her that there's nothing to worry about, since from his limited goblin knowledge, even new adventurers should be able to defeat this thing. And seeing Nora remain so confident gives Lynn the false impression that he must have known about the Goblin Emperor ahead of time, which is why he was so excited to get to eliminate this serious threat. She now has even more respect for Nora than she already did, and since he seems confident in their ability to win this fight, she decides to show a little courage and stand alongside him to fight. The goblin charges towards them, so Nora gets in position and parries all its strikes. The goblin realizes that Nora is too skilled, so it attempts to sweep Nora into a corner to gain the advantage. However, Nora knows what it is trying to do, so he overpowers the goblin, and while it is stun-locked, he instructs Lynn to attack. She fires a wind spell, followed by an icicle barrage, but even with that, the goblin is moving too quickly for her to get a clean shot off on it. Once the goblin stops running, it chucks a huge tree Lynn, but before she gets hit, Nora runs in front of her and blocks the attack. The goblin continues tossing trees at Nora, and eventually it comes up with the idea to overwhelm him by tossing several trees at him from above, and one from the front, so now Nora can't block all of them at once. Luckily, before Nora gets hit, Lynn uses a wind blast spell and blows the trees away while dealing damage to the goblin. Nora thanks her for the help, but as Lynn looks back at the goblin, she is shocked to find that it is healing at an abnormally quick rate. The monostome on its head is probably allowing it to replenish its strength, so at this rate, they are definitely going to run out of stamina before they can defeat it. Just then, Nora comes up with an idea to defeat the goblin, so he asks Lynn to fire a wind blast straight at his back. Lynn thinks that's a crazy idea since one of her wind blasts is strong enough to demolish castle walls, so a direct hit is guaranteed to seriously injure Nora. Yet, Nora still wants to go through with the plan, and besides, he will have his sword at his back, so he won't be taking the hit directly. The only chance they have at winning is to be faster than the goblin, and this is the only plan they've got, so Lin agrees to help. As the goblin is preparing to attack once more, Lin fires a wind blast at Nor and sends him flying forward at incredible speeds. He blacks out for a second, but after regaining consciousness, he uses his physical enhancement to stabilize himself, feather step to evade the monster's tree tosses, and low heel to relieve the stress on his body. This allows him to get close enough to the goblin and strike it cleanly in the forehead, dislodging the Mana Stone. With the Mana Stone removed, it will now be a lot easier to kill the goblin, so Nor asks Lin to finish it off, but since it's in a lot of pain already, he asks her not to make it suffer. Lin agrees, but she then proceeds to burn the goblin to death, and I don't think that counts as a suffering-free death. Thankfully, they are done with their quest for today, but Nor says he's going to refrain from going on any more goblin-slaying quests, since he clearly isn't strong enough to handle mere goblins as he is now. Later that evening, the prince has received news of the Goblin Emperor that Nor and Lin defeated, and he is almost certain that the Magic Empire is behind this somehow. But something that really concerns him is the purity of the Mana Stone that was implanted in the goblin's head. Something like this could only have come from the holy theocracy of Mithra, so they now have to worry about them as well. The prince asks how Lin is doing after the fight, and he is relieved to hear that she only suffered minor wounds despite being up against a monster like that. But according to what Lin told the secret corpse, the goblin was using his high-level cloaking magic, so it was probably in that forest for at least a couple of days. The prince is surprised that it had cloaking magic that was imperceptible even to their special forces, but that aside, how the hell did the Magic Empire transport a giant monster like that into the kingdom without anyone noticing? Even if it were done with summoning magic, the kingdom's magic networks should have been able to detect it. He asks if there were any indications that the Goblin Emperor was in the forest, and the secret corpse mentioned that there was a declining number of regular goblins in the area, which prompted the guild to post jobs to conduct an investigation. And on the off chance that this wasn't an isolated incident, they have gone through the trouble of compiling every strange occurrence that has happened within the past 3 months. The prince thanks them and asks that they keep investigating in case anything else happens so they can report to him, and at the same time, Nor and Lin are reporting to the guild to claim their reward. The guildmaster asks Nor how his first goblin hunt went, and still thinking the Goblin Emperor was a regular goblin. Nor says it was a lot harder than he expected it to be, and if Lin hadn't been there to back him up, he has no idea what he would have done. The guildmaster laughs and assumes that Nor must have been hiding the whole time while Lin did all the work, and Nor is too humble to give himself any credit, so he says Lin was indeed the one who finished it off, but he wishes he had known the red stone on the goblin's forehead would be a weak spot earlier. Guildmaster has no idea what Nor is talking about since regular goblins don't have magic stones on their heads, so he asks if what they fought was really just a goblin. And as far as Nor knows, all goblins are 12 feet tall, so he says it was a normal goblin and Guildmaster takes his word for it. The paperwork is officially complete, so now they just need to provide the proof of the goblin kill. However, that's when they remember that Lin burnt the body to ashes, so there's nothing for them to present as proof. Over in the castle, Prince Rain receives a compiled report of every strange occurrence that has recently occurred in the kingdom, and he is shocked to realize that a lot of these reports are similar to the incident that took place in the Forest of Beasts, meaning the enemy has already infiltrated the kingdom to a large degree. He orders the Secret Service to gather every available member with a search skill and head into the forest to see if they can weed out any intruders. He also wants the 6 sovereigns to be called in to assist as well, since this could be a serious emergency. The Secret Service heads out to fulfill his orders, and Rain can't believe he didn't realize this was going on ahead of time. He has no idea what the Magical Empire might be planning, but he is disgusted that they are willing to put the lives of all the innocent citizens here at risk just because they want the rights to the dungeon. Back to Nor and Lin, they are currently having a bite to eat, and thankfully the guild master was kind enough to give Nor the reward anyway, even though there was no proof. He knows Nor and Lin wouldn't lie about it, and a single goblin isn't worth much anyway, so he saw no harm in it. Nor is glad to have successfully completed his first hunt with Lin, but he's starting to wonder how long she intends to stick around now. It's already evening, so the king must have started getting worried by now. Right on cue, Lin turns to Nor and says she thinks it's around time she heads home for the day, but she'll be back tomorrow to hang around again. Just before she leaves, Rain shows up, but he's not here for Lin. He actually came looking for Nor since he has a request to ask of him. He apologizes for springing this on him so suddenly, but he wants Nor to head to a city in the mountain district tomorrow morning with Lin. He says he will provide a carriage as well as an escort for the trip, and of course, Nor will be well compensated for the trouble. Nor seems to be okay with it, so he agrees to accept Rain's request even though he wasn't given much detail on the mission. But the reason Nor accepted in the first place has nothing to do with the mission, He has just never gotten to ride in a carriage before, so he wanted to see what it's like. As the carriage crosses the landscape, Nor is amazed by all the beautiful scenery since the only places he has ever seen are his home in the capital. However, Lin doesn't seem to be enjoying the ride as much as he is. He asks her if she doesn't like the scenery, but Lin agrees that it's rather beautiful. She just feels bad that Nor was burdened with a request from her brother. Nor tells her she doesn't need to worry about it since he's getting paid well for this, and he still owes her a favor for helping him on the goblin hunt anyway. Before they left, Rain explained the route their carriage would take, saying they would first head towards the mountain district of Tauros, and once there, they would wait a little before proceeding. If nothing strange happens while they are there, then they'll move on and cross the mountain and head to the holy theocracy of Mithra. Nor asked if it was really okay for him to get paid for this if he doesn't have to do anything, and Rain said it was fine, but Nor doing nothing would only happen in the best-case scenario where nothing goes wrong. Lin really hopes everything turns out okay, but even if things do go awry, Ains is here as backup. Ains doesn't want to mention this, but Rain gave her a secret order before they departed. He told her that in the near future, an unprecedented crisis would befall the royal capital, and there isn't much he can do to stop it. So he told Ains that if she were to receive news of the destruction of the royal capital, then she was to flee to Mithra with Nor and Lin. He didn't tell Lin of this plan because he knew that she would surely say she wants to stay and fight for the capital, and he can't allow her to put herself in danger. She thinks it is not a good idea for her to leave the capital as Lin and Nor's escort when they are on the verge of a crisis, but Rain insists that her job is of the utmost importance. She is the only one whom he can entrust Lin to, so he needs her to make sure that Lin remains safe, no matter what. Back to the present, Ains and the others are currently taking a break by a river, and Ains takes a moment to apologize to Nor for getting mixed up in all this trouble. Nor doesn't understand what she means since this is supposed to be a regular trip, and more importantly, he notices that Ains seems to be upset about something, so he asks her if something is bothering her. She just says she is a little worried at the moment, especially with her current escort duties, meaning she has to keep Nor safe as well. Nor tells her she doesn't need to worry about him since he's perfectly capable of defending himself, and if things end up really bad, he would run away if necessary. Ains tells him he won't need to do that, since if things go wrong, she can protect him and Lin with her shield. Nor is surprised that Ains has a shield with her since she doesn't look like she has any equipment on her, so Ains offers to show him her shield and uses her skill to generate a shield of green light in front of her. Nor is even more amazed than before, and Ains tells him that he's free to seek shelter behind it if they find themselves in serious danger. According to what he heard from Lin, Gilbert is supposedly strong enough to bring down a dragon on his own, and Ains is almost equal to him in terms of strength. Meanwhile, Nor thinks he is comparably weak since he can barely handle a goblin. He tells Ains that he thinks she's incredibly talented, but she wouldn't exactly call it talent. She had realized that she had a special power within her back when she was a kid at the orphanage, but she still didn't know what it was. One of her friends saw the glowing light coming from her hand and decided to touch it, but it leads to Ains' friend getting injured. This was incredibly traumatic for Ains, but once the adults found out, they quickly healed the girl and called Ains in to discuss her ability. Ains wasn't in any trouble since what happened was an accident, but the adults were rather interested in her ability, so they asked her to demonstrate it. Ains reluctantly shows them her green light, and they recognize this power to be a gift from the heavens. It is an energy that can take the form of a sword to cut down your foes or a shield to protect those she cares about. It is a versatile power that could even destroy a country depending on how she uses it, so the sovereigns said they would teach her to use her power correctly. Her training was mainly handled by the shield sovereign Dandald, and before long, she was easily able to form a shield that could stop boulders with ease. However, even with the control she had over her powers, an incident with her friend caused her to constantly fear accidentally hurting others, so she purposefully distanced herself from those around her. But on the day she met Nor, she was shocked to realize that she had heard his name somewhere before. While on a mission with Dandald, he had just saved Ains from a giant mantis, but there were still more monsters up ahead, and the soldiers with them were beginning to show signs of fatigue. So Dandald mentioned how he wished someone like Nor was still around. Nor has earned the approval of her adoptive father before she could, so Ains developed a natural jealousy for this person named Nor, despite never having met him before at the time. That's why she was so hostile to Nor when she first met him, and she honestly still feels jealous, but she doesn't want to let her emotions get in the way of the mission since she has to defend Lin at all costs. As they continue to the fields, Nor notices a strange dead patch in the fields, and Lin immediately realizes that something is not right, so she casts an uncover spell and dispel the concealment magic to reveal a giant poisonous frog. Meanwhile, back at the capital, the situation has gotten pretty bad, just like Rain had predicted. Several monsters have been sighted all across the capital, and while the warrior courts are handling it, they don't have enough soldiers to deal with all the monsters. Rain orders for the swordsman troops to block off the road to halt the advancement of the monsters. And while that's done, he wants the Secret Service and the hunters to assist as much as possible. The king is still in disbelief that Doritas could be petty enough to cause this much destruction just because he didn't get what he wanted. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like Doritas will stop with just this either, so the king asks where the 6 sovereigns are. Rain tells him that all 6 of them have been dispatched to various locations due to exceptionally powerful monsters emerging, so they're a bit busy at the moment. With their forces spread out so thin like this, their chances of victory are dwindling by the minute, but at least Rain managed to get Lin to safety in time. Meanwhile, over with Lin and the others, after Lin had cast the Uncover spell, the little boy next to the monster gets attacked. Ain sees the monster and recognizes it as a black death dragon, but upon seeing the monster attack the little boy, Nor doesn't ask any questions and just leaps into action to defend him. As the monster was about to squish the boy, Nor appears in front of him and parries the strike. Meanwhile, Inz asks Lin if she noticed how the boy appeared at the same time as the monster, meaning he was being concealed by the spell as well. And that can only mean one thing. The boy must be Demon Kin. Lin remembers talking about Demon Kin with Rain once, and the summary is that Demon Kin are almost identical to humans, but they have the special ability to form mental bonds with monsters at will, so if anything, they are considered to be closer to monsters than humans and are seen as abominations by most people. There are records which state that Mithril was almost completely wiped out by Demon Kin 200 years ago, and because of this, Demon Kin were extensively hunted by humans until they were thought to have gone extinct. However, there are still some surviving Demon Kin in the world, and due to the course of history and their near extinction, they bear extreme hatred for humans. And since that boy is a Demon Kin, it means he led the monster here in an attempt to attack the capital with it. Ains can't believe Nor would help someone who is clearly an enemy, but whatever the case may be, Lin still thinks they should go help Nor. However, Ains pulls her back and says she won't allow her to help him because it's not safe. While Nor is parrying the attacks of the frog, he realizes that this thing is a lot weaker than the goblin he fought with Lin. So if he can just hold it off until Lin or Ains can get here, killing it should be easy. However, there's one thing Nor failed to anticipate as the frog slits some dark gas in his direction. Normally, Nor would jump out of the way to save himself, but if he did that, then the boy would get hurt, so he decides to parry the gas instead. Unfortunately, this leads to Nor getting poisoned, and the effects are catastrophic for his health. Blood begins seeping out of his mouth and eyes as the poison begins to take effect, and from the amount of damage it has already done, Nor knows for a fact that it must be a fatal poison. He collapses to the ground as he loses strength in his body, and the frog is about to spit out even more poison. So Lin wants to rush over to save him, but Eanes stops her, warning that the next cloud of poison will be far larger, so she would only be putting herself in danger. It is Eanes' duty to protect Lin at all costs, so if she can at least make sure Lin survives this, then the kingdom can be revived in the worst-case scenario. Besides, one breath from the Black Death Dragon is a guaranteed death sentence, so even if they had the world's greatest healer on standby right now, they still wouldn't be able to save Nor. As the monster spits up another wave of poison, Ains uses her shields to block it, but some poison manages to seep through, so Lin begins using Purify to try and hold it back, but isn't enough. While struggling to hold the poison back, Ains apologizes to Nor for leaving him to die. It goes against her morals to ignore someone on the verge of death in front of her, but she was left with no choice. However, to her surprise, she sees Nor still battling the frog, even with censored blood dripping out of his mouth and eyes. She finally understands why Dandel thought so highly of Nor, and it was because of his indomitable will to protect others no matter the cost. But even if Nor wants to keep going, the poison will eventually claim his life. Soon after, Nor collapses to the ground again, and he can see that he is bleeding a lot, but for some reason he says this is good and it looks like he has a plan to defeat the frog after all. We get a little backstory on the Demon Kin child, and from the day he and all the other so-called cursed children were born, they had been ostracized from the world for their ability to control monsters. They were all locked away in a cell and given disgusting food for their meals. The monster control ability has always been around, and it used to be one that was just used to control livestock, but at some point, someone decided to start controlling monsters and use them to fight in a war, so the power has been hated ever since then. While in prison, the boy was given daily beatings for no reason, and upon asking what he did to deserve such cruel treatment, he was just beaten even more until he could hardly be recognized. And on top of that, he was given no food for 3 whole days. After that, he learned to not talk back anymore if he wanted to minimize the pain he would suffer. He was later put on display for the town's people to insult and attack as they pleased. This was the way demon-kin were normally treated, but for the boy it was much worse because he had the ability to read minds, so he could hear all their cruel thoughts at the same time. Once people figured out that he could read minds, they began to hate him in particular, and would be even more violent towards him than usual. But even through all that suffering, the thought of revenge never once crossed his mind. He hated his situation, but he still didn't like the idea of hurting other people. However, one day his captor instructed him to take control of 2 monsters and use them to attack a neighboring kingdom. He tried to persuade the boy to do it by offering him to reduce his daily beatings to bi-weekly beatings, and he would even throw in some slightly less moldy bread too. But if the boy refused, then he would be treated much worse than he already is. The boy tried to read the mind of his captor to figure out what his plan was, but the man was wearing a magic device that prevented mind reading, so the boy was forced to take his word for it and agree to the deal out of fear for his life and the others like him. That's why he was determined to use the monster to kill the people of the kingdom, but along the way the barrier around him was shattered and he lost focus for a second, so the monster managed to escape his control. And as he tries to regain control, the frog knocks him back and he realizes he has messed up. Because of his failure, the other demon kin are probably going to suffer a lot more than they did before, but while he feels bad for them, he's at least happy that he gets to die without being forced to kill anyone since he never wanted to cause other people pain. He just hopes that if he gets reborn, he won't be treated so badly in his next life. Maybe he could even have a kind family and eat good food, so he closes his eyes and gets ready to embrace death. However, before he could be killed, Norn had stepped in to defend him. The boy couldn't understand why someone from the kingdom would risk their life to save him, and as the frog fired its poison, both Nor and the boy were hit with a heavy dose. However, while Nor had the option of using his basic healing magic on himself to negate the poison, he chose to use it to save the boy instead while he kept fighting. Before long, Nor ended up collapsing due to all the poison in his system, but he is still confident that he can get through this. Nor's confidence comes from a time in his childhood after his mother had died and he had returned to his home. He went out into the forest one day to gather some ingredients for dinner that night, and after spending all day in the forest, he had gathered quite a collection of herbs. He wasn't sure what all the herbs were exactly, but what's the worst that could happen if he just chucks it all into his soup for dinner? This is the worst that could happen. Nor is currently bleeding out on the floor because the soup turned out to be highly poisonous, and with no one around to help him, he was bound to die if he didn't do something to save himself quickly, so he used his low heal ability to try to recover a little. Thankfully, the low heal allowed him to survive till morning, and once he is finally able to stand again, he heads outside to wash his face, and then heads to the library to figure out what he just ate. He realizes that the red herb he brought is called Dragon Ruin, and his mom had even once specifically warned him never to eat it, so he can't believe he made such a stupid mistake. But being poisoned isn't going to be enough to get him to stop working. Nor struggles with all his might to make it outside so he could keep up with his daily training, but the poison had greatly weakened him, so he ends up falling to the ground in pain. He uses low heal once more to try making himself feel better, and to his surprise, he wakes up a hole later after blacking out, and he is feeling a lot better than before. His stomach doesn't hurt anymore, which is a good thing, but he can also now tell that he is incredibly hungry, so he heads back into the forest to find something to eat. As he does this, he is very careful not to pick another Dragon Ruin plant, and while he's definitely not going to make the same mistake again, as he is inspecting the plant, he gets bitten in the ass by a poison spike snake. He manages to punch it to death, but the snake is known to be extremely venomous, so Nor soon collapses to the ground because of it. However, while any ordinary person would have already been dead by now, Nor wakes up a couple hours later and he seems to be perfectly fine once again. He can hardly believe that he survived that, and since he already killed the snake, he decides to take it home and try eating it. He figured that if he was able to survive the snake's bite, then he can't possibly face any negative side effects from getting bitten. And this time he's right, since the poison doesn't have much of an effect on him, and it actually turns out to be quite delicious. The following day, Nor heads out to test his hypothesis, so he finds another poison spike and forces it to bite him so that he can see what happens. And just like he had thought, the venom seems to be spraying through his body a lot slower than it did yesterday, so he believed he had acquired some kind of poison resistance. He was excited since he believed this may be the key to unlocking some kind of new skill, so Nor began intentionally seeking out poisonous things to eat in hopes of gaining a new skill. He would end up collapsing from a poison overdose on occasion, but he would always get back up and keep eating, no matter how much blood he lost in the process. He never did gain any poison-related skills, but through his poisonous meal intake, he ended up really liking the taste of poisonous things. Which is why right now, even though he is being threatened by the monster, he can only think about how good the frog is going to taste after he kills it. The frog tries to squish him, but Nor backflips out of the way in time and gets back on his feet. At first, since the frog's poison is pretty strong, it took a while for Nor's body to naturally counteract it, which is why he collapsed for a second there. But by now, he has had enough time to become totally immune to the frog's poison attacks, so he begins fighting again. As he parries the frog's strikes, Nor ends up destroying all of its claws, and as it tries jumping at him, he parries its face and shatters all its teeth as well. The frog has now realized that it won't be able to handle Nor normally, so it starts charging up a huge poison blast, and Nor assumes this must be the frog's desperate attempt at survival. However, to Nor, it's nothing but a free meal, so before it can release the poison, Nor uses his sword to slam its mouth shut, causing all the poison to build up inside its body and make the frog explode. Nor is glad he managed to defeat it, but he can't help but wonder how such a poisonous frog got all the way out into this field in the first place. But it works out for him since the more poison something has, the more tasty it is for Nor. Just then, he remembers that there's a kid behind him, so he turns around to ask the boy if he is alright. The boy answers that he is fine, but he looks pretty sickly to Nor, so if he wants to have Lin properly heal him once they are done here. He asks the boy what he's doing out here, and the boy doesn't want to lie, so he tells Nor that he's the one who brought the frog here, and he did it because he promised that he would get the frog into the city. The gears start turning in Nor's head as he tries to think of an explanation for what the boy just said, and since he is such a fan of poisonous food, he only thinks of the black death dragon as livestock to be eaten, leading him to the conclusion that the boy must be a frog farmer. He also decides that the boy must have been hiding himself in a barrier because he didn't want to get robbed of his deliciously poisonous frog meat. So now, Nor believes he ruined the boy's meat delivery, and he begins apologizing profusely for it. He offers to pay the boy back for the frog meat even if it takes him a couple years, but the boy tells Nor that there's no need for that since it doesn't matter to him. Nor accepts this, but he is still curious as to how a young boy like him managed to get that frog this far in the first place. The boy hesitantly answers that he has the ability to control monsters, so that's what he used to bring the monster here. Nor thinks the boy must have some kind of amazing skill to be able to do that, but the boy clarifies that it's not a skill, rather it's an ability he was born with. The boy also tells Nor that he is a demon kin, but while he was expecting Nor to become hostile towards him, Nor just begins pondering all the things he would do if he had those kinds of powers. For one, he would be able to have animals help him in the fields, he would be able to send messages with birds, and he would never need to worry about getting attacked by a monster at night again. So he kind of wishes he had that ability as well. The boy asks Nor if he really isn't scared of him and his ability, but Nor doesn't see a reason why he should be scared since the boy has an ability that is super useful. The boy is shocked to learn that Nor thinks his ability is useful, so he breaks down in tears because he never believed his life could have such meaning to it. Nor sees a lot of himself in the boy, but he doesn't understand why he has so little self-worth when he has such a great skill. He assumes there must be some extenuating circumstances involved, but he knows the boy will be able to become a great person someday, so he assures the kid that he has a bright future ahead of him. Just then, the others come running over to check on Nor, and Lin wants to begin healing him immediately, but Nor says he is perfectly fine, so she doesn't need to worry. Lin can't believe Nor is actually alright after taking the hit from the Black Death Dragon since the dragon's breath isn't just poisonous, it is an extreme concentration of miasma that would corrupt even the soil, so how on earth could Nor have withstood it? There's only one explanation she can think of, so she recalls how the Saint Sovereign once showed her a technique known as Sacred Spirit. It is one that is achieved by honing the body and mind, and once perfected, it can be used to negate all forms of corruption and purify everything the user touches. It took Saint Sane 40 years to acquire, yet Nor achieved it in less than half the time, and he doesn't even realize it. Nor then asks Lin if she could heal his new friend here, but the boy says he doesn't need any healing either since he is perfectly unharmed. After getting one look at him, Lin can immediately tell that the boy is demon kin, but Nor doesn't see why that should be a problem, so he was hoping they would allow the boy to join them in the carriage so they can give him a ride. From what Lin knows, demon kin are a terrifying race that most countries would recommend killing on sight, so she asks Nor if he is really okay with bringing the boy with them, even after he brought a monster and caused a disaster like this. Nor admits that it's unfortunate that the field got destroyed, but feels like he should help the kid out since he killed the poisoned frog he worked so hard to bring here. By the way, Nor remembers the boy saying he promised someone that he would bring the frog here, but who exactly was this person? The boy tells him that he isn't sure since they never let him get that information, and Inns can tell that he isn't lying. Furthermore, by the state of his body and the way he acts, Inns can tell that he must have been a slave wherever he came from. Slavery is outlawed in the Kingdom of Clays, but the same can't be said about the other countries, so she realizes that the boy was probably forced to do this. She asks him if she remembers the way back to where he came from, but the boy was blindfolded before getting dropped off in the middle of nowhere and being told to head in this direction. Lynn now realizes she may have misjudged the boy, so she asks Inns if they can take Rollo on their journey after all. But there's one major problem with that idea, and it's the fact that demon kin are banned from entering Mithra at all. So if they try to take the Rollo there, it may be seen as enemies. Just then, they hear a voice from behind them, and they see a man standing there who is surprised because he expected Rollo to have died already. The man also notices that Rollo messed up his job of delivering the frog, and since he seems to know about the delivery, Nor asks the man if he is the one who ordered Rollo to do this. The man says it wasn't him. He is just someone who was hired to take out Rollo and aid the progress of the mission. He asks Nord if he is the one who killed the frog, and Nord confirms that it was him, and he apologizes since he still thinks the frog was meant to be eaten. But the man tells him that he doesn't care about the frog, he was just hired to get Rollo. Nord misunderstands this to mean that the man is here to pick up Rollo, and he's not wrong, but the man's intentions are nowhere near innocent. In the next moment, the man disappears and appears behind the group. Nor parries his attack, but he is confused as to why the man attacked out of nowhere, and the man realizes that Nor isn't going to be an easy opponent to beat, so he takes a step back and calmly asks Nor if he would be willing to hand the boy over to him without a fight. Rollo is apparently worth a lot of money, but only as a corpse, so since Nor obviously isn't going to just let him kill Rollo, the man strikes again. Nor is still having a hard time understanding why the man would want to kill Rollo, so the man explains that he could also bring Rollo back alive, but his client would still murder him anyway. So why go through all that trouble? If anything, he thinks he is doing Rollo a favor by ending his life quickly, but Nor still doesn't get what's going on. The man gives up on trying to explain things and tries to jump over Nor's head to strike Rollo, but Nor manages to keep up with him and knocks the assassin back, breaking his dagger in the process. Both Nor and the assassin are moving so fast that Lynn can barely keep track of them, so Ains tries to keep her close by to protect her in case they get caught in the crossfire. The assassin is starting to get really annoyed with how tough Nor is, so he pulls out some more daggers and attempts to strike at him multiple times, but Nor manages to defend against each and every one of those strikes and pushes him back against. He now sees Nor as a genuine obstacle to the success of his mission, so he is going to start seriously trying to kill him. He dashes forward at an insane speed and attempts to stab Nor in the face, but Nor once again manages to parry the attack, although it sends him flying backward. Once Nor regains his footing, he remarks that it is incredible that someone can generate that much force in a single strike with such a small knife. The assassin is surprised Nor was able to block a serious attack from him, and furthermore, he even shattered another one of the assassin's daggers, and the assassin thinks that he is really interesting. He pulls out another dagger and dashes in to attempt to overwhelm Nor, but despite his best efforts, Nor is still holding his ground. However, at this rate, Nor isn't going to be able to last much longer while protecting Rollo, as he can't keep up with the assassin's attacks based on instinct alone. The pressure from their fight is so intense that Inns had to put up a shield so that Lynn won't be in danger of getting caught in the chaos. It took a while, but she finally recognizes the assassin. His fashion sense matches up with the former S-rank adventurer, the deadman Zadu. A while ago, Inns walked into a meeting with all the sovereigns, and she was curious about some old documents she found. It's about a target that was declared to be officially dead, but she doesn't recall ever seeing anyone going to deal with this person. The sovereigns tell her that it's better to leave that mission alone and just declare the target dead, because actually going after him would be too much of a challenge. The target was Zadu, who became an S-rank adventurer at a young age, but his actions led him to become a wanted man. However, he is too strong for any of them to be willing to risk going after him, so they decided to just leave him alone as long as he is not causing trouble in the kingdom. Gilbert was interested to learn more about Zadu, since he is apparently strong enough to have the other sovereigns scared to fight him, so the wizard begins to explain the story of Zadu. As a child, Zadu had already mastered the art of dwarven alchemy, and by the age of 13, he had already killed his first dragon. After that, his abilities became known far across the lands, so much so that he became the apex of all heroes. However, while it sounds like Zadu was the perfect hero, he never had an Uncle Ben, so he began using his powers irresponsibly. For instance, he once murdered 36 members of a merchant family, and it's almost unheard of for an adventurer to kill ordinary people, so there was a motion to strip Zadu of his adventurer's license. However, while on the one hand he did kill a bunch of people, on the other hand, the dude could one-shot a dragon, so they weren't willing to risk making an enemy out of him. Ultimately, the matter of Zadu's punishment was postponed and he faced no repercussions. Zadu is someone who will accept any job, no matter how evil or depraved it may be. All he cares about is the money he gets paid. In fact, he once literally destroyed an entire country at the request of a client. He killed every member of their army, and then slaughtered the entire royal family. Therefore, in order to prevent any further casualties, the guild decided to pretend he has already been killed so that no one would risk attacking him again. Back with Xadu, he has just lost another dagger, and he is upset because he has almost used up his entire collection in this fight against Noor. Noor apologizes for ruining all of Xadu's daggers, but he says Xadu is partially to blame for attacking out of nowhere like this. Xadu says it's fine since he wasn't looking for an apology, but he still thinks it is really strange that his daggers keep breaking since they are all made of orichalcum and dragon tusk, and they should make it practically indestructible. Furthermore, he has a lot of questions about the sword Noor is using because it is unlike anything he has ever seen before. He decides that it's better to play it safe for today, so he uses his trump card and throws his ultimate weapon into the air. As he does so, it begins to glow red, and in a flash of red light, Unlimited Blade Works has been activated. There are thousands of blades now all pointed straight at Noor, and no matter how many of them Noor manages to destroy, Xadu can always just make more of them. Noor tries his best to parry all the crosses, but there are simply too many of them, so he is forced to let himself get stabbed in order to protect Rollo. Ins realizes that there are too many crosses being thrown at Noor, so she wants to go help, but before she does, she stops herself because her mission is to ensure that Lin makes it to safety, so she should leave Lin's side for any reason. However, after giving it some more thought, she decides to go help Noor after all. As Noor continues to struggle against the barrage of countless crosses, he realizes he won't be able to counter the incoming attack, so he braces himself for the inevitable stabbing. However, to his surprise, In steps in at the last second and stops the crosses with her shield. Her mission may be to protect Lin, but she also realizes that Noor is far stronger than her, and by extension, having him around would greatly improve Lin's chances of surviving any threats they come across, so she refuses to let him die here. She uses some of her shields to attack Xadu, and Noor is really impressed, but while it's certainly keeping him busy, it doesn't look like any of her attacks are ever going to touch Xadu. Yuda's crosses are managing to evade In's attacks, so she asks Noor if he can help her out a little. She can handle their defense for now, but she doesn't have the speed necessary to take down Xadu, which is why she needs Noor to do it. Noor isn't sure he can handle blades that are moving this fast, but then again, he has managed to hit birds that move faster than this, so he might be able to pull it off. He picks up one of the broken claws from the frog and tells Ins that he has an idea, so on his signal, he wants her to drop the shield that she put directly in front of him. Noor gives the signal and Ins drops some of the shields to give him a clearing to attack. With a couple of dragon scales in his hand, Noor activates his physical enhancement and stone throw abilities, and the combination basically turns his arm into an anti-aircraft missile launcher as the claw fragments destroy all the crosses headed their way. Noor still has plenty of ammunition, so as he reloads, he asks Ins to drop the shield again, and he proceeds to destroy even more of Xadu's crosses. It looks like they are making steady progress against him, but while she wasn't paying attention, Xadu sneaks up behind Ins and nearly stabs her straight in the eye. But at the last second, Noor successfully parries the attack, breaking yet another one of Xadu's daggers. That attack looked like it was really close, but for Noor, it was barely a challenge to block it. Xadu can't believe Noor is able to react to his attacks that quickly, and that he managed to break a dagger made of adamantite. Noor once again apologizes for destroying such a valuable dagger, but it's still Xadu's fault for attacking first. Xadu says he doesn't need an apology, but he needs to make up for all the money he lost on those destroyed daggers. He tries attacking Noor again, but Noor successfully blocks and breaks another dagger. Xadu asks Noor how he keeps managing to see through all his attacks, but Noor can't really explain his methods, he just kind of knows how to react. Xadu feels like there has to be some secret behind Noor's power, but he will have to find out some other day, because for now he's done. After all the blades Noor destroyed, Xadu is going to have to go through a lot of effort to recover the mithril needed to replace them all, and he doesn't want to lose any more blades, so he is going to give up on collecting the reward for Rollo. He was also going to head over to the kingdom, since he heard there's something interesting going on over there, but he put a hold on that as well. Ains asks him what he means by something interesting at the kingdom, but Xadu doesn't know the details, he just knows that it is going to be really extravagant. He calls over to Rollo and tells him that he is lucky Noor is here, because no matter what kind of attack he tries, Noor is always one step ahead of him. He even tries going for one last sneak attack, but predictably, Noor blocks it with ease. Xadu won't be able to complete his mission while Noor is around, so he takes a step back and just teleports away with his magic. Nor breathes a sigh of relief now that Xadu is gone, but Lin has some concerns about the event that is apparently taking place at the capital. Nor asks if she wants to head back to the capital, and then if she is so curious about what's going on. But as soon as he mentions the royal capital, Rollo starts to shiver in fear. Before he was tasked with transporting the Black Death Dragon, he heard his captors talking about how a terrifying monster was going to be sent to the capital. One that would make the Black Death Dragon look like a tiny frog. Hearing this, Lin says they need to hurry back to the capital immediately because the situation is more dire than she had initially thought it was. She asks Nor if he is willing to come with her back to the capital, and Nor is fine with it, but Eames tells them that they can't go. She is about to tell Lin about the order she got from Rain, but Lin already knows about it. Rain had told her that she should escape with Lin if anything ever happened in the capital. Lin didn't hear it from him directly, but she knows how Rain thinks, so she is well aware of what he would want, but she can't accept the plan for her to be the only one to escape. That means the kingdom would still be in danger while she escaped, and she can't let something like that happen. This is the exact same thing that happened to the demon folk when their homeland was destroyed, so if Lin doesn't do anything now, it will surely suffer the same fate. Ainz eventually agrees to go back, but she wants Lin to promise not to leave her side. Rollo says he will go too since he feels partially responsible for the incident, so he wants to help resolve it. Nor pats Rollo on the head for being so responsible, and Lin notices the profound look on Nor's face, so she thinks he must be having a deep moment of self-reflection. But in reality, he is just regretting the fact that he never got to taste the poison frog. Back at the capital, the city lies in ruins, but thanks to the efforts of the 6 sovereigns, they have managed to hold their ground. The problem now is that Rain doesn't know where the next attack will be coming from. It could be from the north, the south, or maybe even above, but according to the reports, there have been no sightings of flying beasts nearby. That may be what the reports say, but Rain notices something up in the sky, so he casts an uncover spell, and to his horror, he finds a dragon looming over the city. And it's not just any dragon either, it's a dragon of calamity. The title of Dragon Slayer was given to the hero from Nor's storybook, after he killed an evil dragon that has been terrorizing the lands. Nor was so impressed by this that he said he wanted to slay a dragon as well, but his father told him that slaying a dragon is no easy feat. Some dragons are incredibly strong and have lived for thousands of years, so a single one can easily reduce mountains to rubble or destroy an entire continent. Back to the present, as Nor and the others are heading back to the capital, Nor notices something off, so he tells everyone that he has a feeling that there's a monster nearby. The others don't see anything, but Nor can clearly sense something and even points towards it, and a moment later, the Dragon of Calamity was revealed. As it loomed over the city, people began to panic, and Rain couldn't believe the Empire would be dumber enough to unleash something like this upon the world just because they didn't get to steal the dungeons here. The Dragon of Calamity is said to have gone to sleep 150 years ago, which means it should still be in its hibernation period for at least another few centuries, but the Empire chose to wake it up and put it on a path that would lead to the destruction of the kingdom. Rain orders everyone that came to take shelter in the capital to evacuate immediately, but from the rooftops, the Bow's sovereign senses magic being used to block off the evacuation roads, and this was done to keep each of the sovereigns busy so they can't unite to face the dragon. The king is looking out the window as certain doom approaches, and Gilbert tries to convince him that he should evacuate as well, but the king tells him to go help evacuate the citizens and make sure they are safe, but he has his own duty to fulfill, so he can't leave the capital yet. Ames watches as the dragon flies over the city, and it will undoubtedly lead to the total destruction of the capital, so they must have already begun evacuation efforts in order to get the citizens out safely. But Lin knows that her father would never evacuate. He would likely use himself as a shield between the dragon and his people, but even someone as powerful as the king stands absolutely no chance against that dragon. Lin is devastated that both the kingdom and her family will be destroyed, but Nor is just amazed since this is the first time he has ever seen a dragon before. The other one was a dragon, but Nor still thinks that was just a farm frog. He asks Lin if her father and brother are still in the capital, and she is sure they will choose to stay behind and make sure everyone makes it to safety. But it's too late for them to help now because they are still so far away from the kingdom. Nor doesn't think the distance is that much of a problem since he can probably make it if he runs, but Lin is shocked to hear that Nor thinks he can make it since the kingdom is still nearly 100 kilometers away and it's going to be destroyed in a couple of minutes. He says they can use the same trick they used against the goblin in the forest, so he wants Lin to hit him with the strongest wind blast she can generate and he will do the rest. He owes a lot to the people of that city, so he wants to at least help the Rain and the king escape if he can. And if Nor says he can make it, then Lin decides to put her faith in him and stop hesitating. The king recalls the meeting he had with the emperor where the Emperor threatened to crush the kingdom if he didn't get what he wanted, but the king didn't budge and told him that he would never give up the Dungeon of the Lost. The Emperor says such a valuable resource is wasted in the hands of the king, and if he were to fully utilize the power within it, he could easily control the world, but the king believes it is best to not interfere with powers you can't control. The Emperor clearly had a different stance because the dragon is certainly not controllable, but it looks like the Emperor doesn't care about what happens as long as he ends up getting that dungeon in the end. The king underestimated how ruthless the Emperor could be, so if he could do things differently, he might have just let him have the dungeon to begin with. However, what's done is done, and the only thing he can think of is if Lin managed to make it to safety in the end. He doesn't think he is fit to be king of a nation like this, as he is much more suited to a life on the battlefield. He apologizes to the people of the kingdom who have been doomed because they followed him, and while it may not be enough to atone for his mistakes, the king is going to make sure that before he dies, he takes out one of that dragon's eyes. Back in Nora's End, Ainz uses her divine shield to create a cylinder to focus Lin's wind blast and asks Nora to stand in front of it. Once he does, Lin prepares herself and casts every magic barrier she knows how to make on the cylinder to make sure no energy is wasted. Nora was the one who suggested this idea, but he's starting to second-guess himself with how dangerous this thing looks now. Once Lin is done casting all the barriers, she tells Nora that she's about to fire the wind blast, but it will be a lot stronger than it was last time, so he should brace himself for impact. Nora asks her to hold on for a second, but it's too late. She has already put everything she has into the spell and casts a six-fold wind blast that launches Nora at least max 10. Over at the capital, the dragon goes straight up to the king and begins charging up its dragon's breath to obliterate him. This is the same flame that burnt the continent to a crisp hundreds of years ago, so there's no way the king can survive a direct hit. The king realizes this himself, but even if he is going to be killed, he has to make sure he does something cool before he dies, so he pulls out a sword and prepares to hit the dragon with everything he has got. That sword is the blast sword, and it channels all the user's mana into one powerful strike, but it comes at the cost of the user's life, so it looks like the king is sacrificing himself for a chance to at least wound the dragon. However, just before the king unleashes the strike, Nora appears out of nowhere and parries the dragon's face, causing the dragon's breath to be fired into the sky and knocking the dragon to the ground. The dragon has no idea what knocked it out, but once it regains consciousness and sees Nora standing there, it realizes that he must have been the one who did it, so it tries to crush him with its tail. However, Nora parries it and sends the dragon falling to the ground again. Nora thought he was going to die after Lin initially shot him here, but he regained consciousness just in time for him to gain control with his physical enhancement and jump over the walls of the castle. However, he couldn't stop himself, so he ended up flying into the dragon and had to parry it. He never wants to get shot like a cannonball again, but Nora is surprised by how easy it was for him to parry the dragon, since it is supposed to be a nation-ending calamity. It's shocking how huge it is, but the impact from Lin's wind blast was much scarier to him. He is confident that he should be able to put up a good fight against that thing, so he stands ready to fight it. Meanwhile, Lin and Ainz have arrived at the capital, and they intend to rescue the king while the Nora distracts the Elder Dragon, but along the way, a huge building piece comes hurtling towards them, causing Lin to fall to the ground, but Ainz manages to keep her safe by putting up a shield. Lin thanks Ainz for saving her life, but as she looks forward, she sees several goblin emperors heading their way. These ones are all a lot smaller than the one she and Nora fought in the forest, but a goblin emperor is still a formidable monster, so she doesn't know how they are going to handle them. She needs to start thinking like Nora would, so she tells herself that these are just regular goblins, so it should be easy to take them down. Ainz understands what Lin is trying to say, and it's true that the goblin emperors really aren't that big of a threat compared to the Elder Dragon that Nora is currently fighting. They hold their ground, and as the goblins charge towards them, Lin fires an ice spell at them. However, the goblins are too fast for the attacks to land. Rollo realizes he has to do something, so he uses his powers and orders the monsters to stand still, and the goblins all freeze in place. Lin takes the opportunity to use ice magic to freeze the goblins in place, while Ainz uses her power to create a sword and slash through them all. With that, they have successfully slain the goblin emperors, and Lin is really impressed with Ainz because not only is she worthy of being known as the Divine Shield, but she can also cut down any foe with her divine sword. And then there's Rollo, who was able to stop those goblin emperors with just a few words. She knows he is a demon folk, but the fact that a boy like him has so much power is insane. Meanwhile, the dragon is having an existential crisis over the fact that this tiny human is parrying every attack he throws at it. And even worse, despite the dragon's claws and scales being supposedly indestructible, Nor is slowly chipping away at it and causing damage to the dragon. And Nor is barely breaking a sweat. Nor is impressed that his sword still isn't even slightly damaged after all the parrying he has been doing, so he is starting to wonder what this thing is made of. The dragon realizes it won't be able to beat Nor with physical attacks, but that doesn't mean it will lose since it has an attack that it is sure Nor won't be able to parry. The dragon flies into the air and begins charging up another dragon's breath attack, which it fires straight at Nor, but Nor isn't fazed and parries it anyway. We all knew it was coming, but Nor has officially parried a nuke. The dragon can't believe what just happened, and Rollo can tell that it's angry, but also frustrated because Nor isn't treating it as a serious threat, even though it's trying its best to be destructive. The elder dragon is a prideful beast that believes it is the most powerful creature, so for Nor to be countering it so easily is a real blow to its ego. So it desperately tries to attack it one last time to assert its strength, but Nor once again parries its attack and breaks one of the dragon's claws in the process, which was the moment the dragon realized that Nor is simply stronger than it, so it gets on the ground and submits to Nor. Everyone who just witnessed this is speechless, and Nor doesn't really know what's going on either, but it looks like the dragon doesn't want to fight anymore, so it is his victory. He recalls the story from his youth and how the hero in his book killed a dragon and used the materials from it to bring wealth and prosperity to the land, but even though this dragon caused so much damage, Nor can't bring himself to kill it, so he just sits down in front of it. Nor notices the others running over to check on him, so he gets up and tells them he is fine. They are shocked that Nor was able to take down a dragon with no injuries, but Nor says it's all thanks to Rollo because he assumes Rollo was the one who made the dragon calm down. Rollo may have stopped the goblins, but he had nothing to do with stopping the dragon and tells Nor as much. But if that's the case, then it makes no sense why the dragon stopped attacking. Nor is still oblivious to the fact that he shattered the dragon's ego, so he comes to the conclusion that Rollo must have been the one to stop it and is just lying about it so people don't fear him. He decides to just accept the credit for Rollo's sake, but he has a favor to ask. He wants Rollo to send the dragon back to where it came from, but Ines is against the idea since the dragon is a serious threat and needs to be dealt with immediately. Nor knows that the safest option would be to kill the dragon now, but he can't bring himself to actually do it, so as long as the dragon isn't hurting anyone, Nor wants to let it live. He knows his request is a bit selfish, but he would like Lynn to at least consider it. Lynn thinks about it for a second, and while she doesn't fully support the idea, if it's what Nor wants, she's willing to go along with it. Nor is glad to hear it, so now that he has permission, he asks Rollo if he can command the dragon to leave. Rollo agrees, but with how powerful the dragon is, he can't exactly command it to do anything. The best he can do is politely ask it to leave and hope it listens. Rollo nervously walks up to the dragon and relays Nor's request, but to his surprise, the dragon immediately agrees and says it will do whatever its master asks. Everyone is shocked that the dragon used the word master, but while the others correctly deduce that the dragon is referring to Nor as its master, Nor thinks the dragon is referring to Rollo instead. Regardless of who the master is, it works out in everyone's favor if the dragon will listen to Nor's requests, so Nor adds a condition that the dragon is not allowed to harm humans anymore. Rollo relays the information, and the dragon says it understands, so it gets up and flies into the air before letting out one last roar and flying away. However, as the dragon is leaving, a laser beam is fired which sends the dragon crashing into the forest. The one behind the laser beam is none other than the Emperor, and he mockingly states that even a mighty dragon is no more than a pawn in his hand, and he can discard it whenever he wants. He uses his telescope to look over at what's left of the kingdom, and he is honestly surprised that it's still standing because he thought the dragon would have blown it up by now. But in the end, it doesn't make much of a difference because he can just finish off the kingdom himself. He gives the order for his troops to begin their attack, and with the wave of a hand, hundreds of troops start spawning with swords, guns, and cannons. Before this plan was carried out, the Emperor's advisor filled him in on the details. The plan was to have a well-known beast tamer awaken the Dragon of Calamity and make it attack the kingdom. And while the dragon is on a rampage, the Emperor's troops would march in equipped with magic swords, armor, and cannons. Furthermore, they will have 4 ultra-high output monoray guns on standby. The Emperor was pleased with this plan, but before it was set into motion, a knight named Randius approached and asked the Emperor to reconsider. He thinks this whole plan is going a little too far for a personal beef with the Empire, and he doesn't see how any of this destruction would benefit the Empire in the long run. The Emperor doesn't want to hear any of Randius' logical arguments, so he kicks him in the face and declares that his empire is at the forefront of magical technology in this world, so he can do whatever the fuck he wants. He plans to spin a story blaming the Kingdom of Clays for its own downfall. He will falsely claim that the kingdom failed to maintain the dungeon, which led to monsters escaping and attacking it, and he will paint himself as the benevolent ruler who stepped in to save them from their own mistakes. And no one will ever know that his story is BS because all the people from the kingdom of clays who know the truth will be dead by then. Nor and the others are led to the crash site of the dragon, and Nor is horrified by what happened to it, hoping that it managed to survive somehow. There's no way of knowing if it is alive unless they get closer, but at the same time, Rollo spots something else that looks like trouble. Similarly, the Emperor's men have spotted Nor's group, so the Emperor grabs a pair of binoculars and takes a look for himself. He spots the group and gets a look at Nor, but he has no idea who Nor is, so he doesn't care. Instead, he is much more interested in the presence of Ins since she is known all around the world as the Divine Shield. The Emperor assumes that she may have been the one who stopped the dragon from destroying the city entirely, but he isn't fazed by her presence at all. He plans to prove that he and his empire's technological advancements are far superior to a living legend such as Ins. He orders his men to get the ray gun ready to fire at the group. Even if Ins is known as the Divine Shield, he believes there is no way she is capable of blocking a laser beam that took down a dragon in one hit. Once the ray gun is aimed and ready to be fired, the troops shoot it straight at the group. The group sees it coming, but it's too late to react at this point since it has already been fired. Lin takes Rollo by the hand and tries to get him out of there, but Ins is stunned in place by the magnitude of the blast heading straight for her. However, just before she could be hit with the blast, Nor steps in front of her and parries it. The energy from the blast creates a huge shockwave, but ultimately, thanks to Nor's quick reaction, everyone remained unharmed. The Emperor can't believe what he just saw since there should be no way for anyone to block a hit from his ray gun. So the soldier in charge of the ray gun suggests that it might have been a misfire due to a problem with the magic condenser. The Emperor accepts that explanation and orders the troops to get a second mana ray ready and fire at the group again. Nor is relieved that he managed to block that laser, but he has no idea what it was or why it was fired at them to begin with. On top of that, there are a ton of people from the Imperial Army standing below them. There are at least 10,000 soldiers here, and though they don't have exact details on what the Emperor's plan is, it is clear that he intends to annihilate the kingdom with his army. The kingdom has an army that is meant to defend them against foreign invaders, but they stand no chance against that many Imperial soldiers. Ain says there is nothing they can do to stop the Empire here, so she suggests that they should retreat for now. Lin agrees and suggests retreating back to the capital, but she wants to know what Nor intends to do. Nor says it's pretty obvious that there's only one thing for him to do, and internally he is thinking that he has no choice but to run away, but Lin mistakes his statement as a declaration that he wants to stay and fight. Just then, Ins realizes that the Empire is firing more lasers at them, so before they hit, she raises his shield to keep everyone safe. The shield is strong enough to hold off the blasts, and the Emperor is rather irritated that it is so difficult to kill Ins, but his soldier tells him that he should head to the rear for his safety while they take care of it. Back on Ins and Nor's end, they are going to be pinned down here indefinitely unless they do something, so Nor realizes that there's only one way to make it out of here. Lin asks him what he has in mind, so Nor tells them that he will draw the attention of the army and buy some time for the rest of them to escape. In his mind, Nor thinks to himself that he is bad at fighting, but he believes he is well versed in the art of running away, so as long as he runs around like crazy, he is sure that things will work out eventually. He tells Lin that he won't do anything too reckless and he intends to make it out alive so she doesn't need to worry about him. Lin understands that Nor needs to do this for their sake, but if he's going to be putting himself in the line of fire as a distraction, then she wants to help him as much as possible. Nor is happy to receive whatever help Lin has to offer, so she walks up to him and Nor thinks she is about to cast a buff on him, but when Lin tells him to prepare for impact, he realizes that she is about to use Wind Blast to shoot him at the Imperial Army. Nor never signed up for this, but Lin assures him that she will adjust her output this time so he should be fine. Just then, Rollo notices that the Imperial Army is getting ready to fire their ray gun again, so they don't have much time to act and Lin tells Nor to get ready because she is about to fire him. Nor is in no way prepared for impact, so he hastily activates his physical enhancement and begins running towards the edge of the cliff so he doesn't die from the impact. As the wind blast hits his back, Nor blacks out for a second, but he regains consciousness quickly and flies under Ins' shield before encountering dozens of those lasers. He attempts to parry them and thankfully it works, so he continues to do the same with the rest of the lasers as he approaches the Imperial Army. His momentum won't allow him to change course, so he decides that he's going to buy as much time as possible by running straight into the army and parry it. The Imperial soldiers raise their swords to intercept Nor, but as he gets within range and swings his sword, all the soldiers lose their swords in an instant. Nor swings his sword again, and this time all the soldiers lose their shields as well. Nor doesn't really have a plan at this point, so he's just parrying everything that he can. The Emperor sees the swords of his men fly into the sky, and he is dumbfounded because that doesn't seem natural. Just then, a man comes flying at him, and upon landing, Nor takes a brief look at the Emperor and then goes back to parrying everything. Meanwhile, all the soldiers who had their swords and shields parried are still in shock over what happened. But then the swords that flew into the sky begin falling down, and none of the soldiers have their shields anymore, so Nor's kill count just went through the roof. And immediately after that, all the surviving soldiers have their heads bashed in by the falling shields. Nor spends the next few minutes parrying all the Emperor's troops and sending them flying to their off-screen doom. And once he is done, he returns to the mountains where the Emperor is standing. By now, the Emperor has realized two things. Nor is the guy he saw with his binoculars on the other side of the valley, which means he somehow ran all the way here in less than a minute. And two, this guy single-handedly disarmed and killed at least half of the army, and with how Nor is staring at him now, he fears that Nor knows he is the Emperor and is going to kill him. Nor slowly begins walking towards the Emperor, and the Emperor merely shits a brick, but then he remembers that his armor and sword are made of orichalcum, so he is confident that he won't lose to Nor. However, a second later, Nor runs past him and the Emperor thinks Nor might be retreating, but to his horror, he looks up and sees that Nor actually went and parried all the ray guns, and they are all falling in the Emperor's direction. If the Emperor's underwear was white, it is definitely brown now. The Emperor spent a fortune developing all these weapons and equipping his soldiers, but all of it was destroyed in a few seconds after this man arrived on the battlefield. Nor runs back up to the Emperor and stabs his sword into the ground in front of his face. The Emperor recognizes the sword as the one that the King of Clays had displayed in his throne room, but he doesn't know why Nor has it. Furthermore, it is made out of an unknown metal and is too heavy for any human to lift. The king was able to carry it during his adventurer days, but even then, he needed two hands to swing it, yet Nor is swinging the sword around with one arm like it's nothing. The Emperor knows there is no way he can win against someone like Nor, and the way Nor is smiling makes him think Nor is planning some sick and twisted form of torture for him, and the thought of that makes him piss himself. The Emperor gets up and begins running for his life because he has had the fear of Nor engraved into his soul. However, in reality, Nor was clueless the entire time. When he first arrived and saw the Emperor, he was confused as to why an old man like him would be out on the battlefield with golden armor. But he's sure the guy couldn't possibly be anyone important, so instead of worrying about him, Nor directs his attention towards the hundreds of swords he had parried earlier. He didn't want to let the Imperial soldiers gather their weapons, so he decided that he would continuously parry the equipment to keep it out in the hands of the soldiers. While he was busy doing that, he suddenly spotted the Empire's heavy artillery, and he had no idea what that thing was at the time. But with Nor on the battlefield, if it's not bolted to the ground and it's getting parried. While he did all this, he kept occasionally running into the same weird old man, but he still didn't think the guy was important, so he just ignored him and kept parrying. However, when the Emperor said he recognized Nor was intrigued because he doesn't remember ever having met this old man before, so he began approaching him. However, as he arrived, the old man began pleading for his life for some reason. Nor had no intentions of killing him, although he could understand why the man would be scared of him, so Nor tried to calm the man down by smiling. But his smile only made things worse as the man pissed himself and ran away on his horse. Nor feels bad for scaring the old man, so he's about to chase after him so he can apologize. But before he can move, his body gives out and he falls to his knees and is slowly encircled by the surviving Imperial soldiers. It looks like he has finally reached his limit, and low heal can't do anything to relieve exhaustion that is this bad, so Nor ends up throwing up blood. His final thoughts before he passes out are for Lin, Ains, and Rollo to escape without him, but before he gets jumped, he hears someone yell out "Shooting Star," and in the next moment, hundreds of arrows rain down on the battlefield. Nor remembers this technique because it's one he saw the bow's Sovereign use when he was trying to learn from her. The spear's Sovereign, Gilbert, is also here, along with the sword's Sovereign. And while the sword's Sovereign doesn't recognize Nor, he thanks him for doing all of this and stopping the army till now. There isn't much left to do, but he wouldn't feel right having the title of Sovereign if he didn't at least help clean up the rest of the enemies. As they jump down, the sword's Sovereign uses his skill and performs 1,000 slashes at the same time, making sure that there will be no survivors. Nor remembers seeing this technique because it is the power of swordsmanship that he has always wanted to harness, and he is mesmerized by how amazing it is. While the sword's Sovereign continues to slaughter all the soldiers that cross his path, the Saint's Sovereign complains that he specifically asked the sword's Sovereign not to kill too many soldiers. Oaken says it can't be avoided since the army is too large for him to use non-lethal tactics, but the Saint says killing all the soldiers just makes his job harder. He's a saint, not a necromancer. So how is he supposed to interrogate a corpse to get information? If the person is alive, he can just torture and heal them over and over until they eventually crack. For legal reasons, the saint says he was joking about torturing people, but that aside, reinforcements should be arriving soon, so the saint asks Oaken to get ready. Oaken raises his hand and casts a large-scale binding spell to hold all the Imperial soldiers in place, and with the enemy soldiers unable to move, the warriors come running in and bludgeon them all. Oaken is really enjoying all the action he's getting since it's been ages since he got to let loose like this. But it's time to end this, so he uses his magic to create a stone prison and trap all the surviving soldiers. From here on out, the Saint and his team of healers will take over and heal all the surviving soldiers just so they can be tortured and forced to reveal all the details of this attack. Nor realizes that all the sovereigns are the instructors who taught him back when he was a kid, and he's glad he gets to see them all again. Now that the battle is over, Lynn rushes to Nor's side so she can treat his exhaustion, and after a little bit of healing, Nor says he feels much better. Lynn thinks he should rest a little longer, but Nor assures her that he's perfectly fine now, although he's really hungry. Saint has finished interrogating the enemy's soldiers for info, and it looks like these were all the forces of the Empire, so there won't be any more attacks on the kingdom. However, it looks like the Emperor managed to escape somehow. Oaken is surprised that the Emperor would be reckless enough to personally show up on a battlefield when he's just a regular old man, but he must have been very confident in his chances of victory, at least until Nor showed up. Nor asks if they are talking about that guy he saw wearing tons of gold armor, but that guy ran off a while ago. If the Emperor makes it to the border, then there's no way they can go after him. But by now, they'll never be able to catch up to him in time unless they were somehow able to fly all the way there. It seems impossible, but Nor thinks there might actually be a way to catch up to the Emperor, assuming the dragon is still alive over there. They head over to the dragon's crash site, and it's Sane's first time being asked to heal a dragon, so he's pretty excited and begins right away. As he is healing it, he comments that Nor has really grown a lot since the last time they met, and Oaken is glad to see that Nor is doing well, but he can't help but be worried that it might be a bad idea to revive the dragon since dragons are pretty dangerous. Nor says there's nothing to worry about since the dragon is on their side now, although he still doesn't realize that the dragon thinks of him as a master. He asked Rollo to talk to the dragon for them, and Oaken asks if Rollo is confident in his ability to control the dragon, but Rollo says he can't control the dragon at all, and that makes Oaken worry a lot. Just then, the dragon wakes up with a loud roar, and Nor can tell that it is angry. He can't totally understand it, but he grew up surrounded by animals, so he can more or less tell how it feels, and it's out for revenge. The dragon wants to leave immediately, so Nor says everyone should climb onto the dragon's back. However, he wasn't expecting Lynn and Ains to come along as well. Lynn tells Nor that since Rollo needs to come with them so he can communicate with the dragon, then she and Ains have to join him as his guards. She asks if Nor is going to go too, and Nor hadn't really considered it, and he could join them, but he's afraid of heights, so he really doesn't want to. Then again, Nor was the one who came up with the idea of riding the dragon, so it would be really awkward if he didn't go with them. Sane says he will go as well since he still needs to make sure the dragon heals properly, and Karu, the thief sovereign, says he will offer his assistance as well. If they are going to be flying on the back of a dragon that big, then they'll need him to use his concealment skill to stay hidden until they reach their target. Oaken wants to come along as well, but Sane reminds him that he is in charge of maintaining the rock prison, so he can't ride on the dragon with them. Someone else says they want to go as well, so everyone turns around to see who it is, and they are surprised to see the Rain and the King here. Rain says he wishes to join them since they will meet a royal negotiator when they confront the Emperor, but Lynn is just glad to see that he and the King are alright. Ains kneels before Rain and apologizes for going against his orders and returning to the capital with Lynn, but Rain tells her that she has nothing to be sorry for since she made the right call. Once everyone has climbed onto the dragon, the King puts Rain in charge of making any tough decisions that come up, and he apologizes to Nor for constantly relying on him, but he asks that Nor protect everyone while they are out there. Nor promises to make sure everyone returns safe and sound, so the King can relax and let them handle it. As Nor and the others fly away on the dragon, the Sword and Shield sovereigns look on in astonishment at how much Nor has grown since they last saw him. The Sword sovereign wanted to say something to him, but he held himself back because he realizes Nor never needed a teacher like him in his life. He was able to reach such heights of power by simply training on his own, and it made the Sword sovereign realize something very important. When he saw all those enemy weapons being tossed in the air like that, he realized that he had become complacent with his own insignificant strength, so he intends to retrain himself from scratch until he can overcome his shortcomings. Meanwhile, Nor and the others are high above the clouds looking for any signs of the Emperor. However, despite their best efforts, they haven't had any luck locating him yet. and it is entirely possible that he might have already made it back to the Empire by now. They begin approaching the bridge, which indicates the start of the Empire's territory, and the others aren't sure whether they should keep pursuing him or if they should turn back for now. Since Rain is the one in charge of decision-making, they all ask him what he thinks they should do, but before he answers, Lin happens to spot the Emperor as he is racing across the bridge in terror. They've successfully found him, but he is getting close to the Imperial Fortress, and there's no way they can catch up to him before he makes it inside. Right now, Kara's ability is concealing their presence, but if they make themselves known, then the magic will lose its effectiveness and they'll be in for a tough battle. Rain acknowledges that there are risks involved, but he refuses to let the Emperor escape after all the chaos and destruction he has caused for the kingdom. If given the chance, the Empire might be able to use its magic tools to reinforce its military and launch another attack someday, and that's something Rain will not allow. They are at war, so there's no time to be thinking about things like morals and casualties, so Ainz asks Lin for permission to go scorched earth on that fortress. Ainz would normally never want to exert her full power for any reason, but right now she's insanely angry at the Empire for nearly destroying her home as well as putting Lin in danger, so mercy is not an option. Rain gives Ainz permission to lay waste to the fortress, so she uses her powers to summon a divine sword and unleashes several slashes which destroy the fortress's defenses. Now that the defenses have been taken out, the fortress won't be able to fight back anymore, so they are free to do what they want now. Before they go, Rain warns Lin that they are going to be invading the Empire's territory to capture the Emperor, so he wants to make sure she is ready for it. Lin said she's sure everything will work out in the end because everyone aboard this dragon is extraordinarily strong, and above all, Nor is calmly meditating, so he must be confident in their chances of success. However, in reality, Nor just passed out because he's still really scared of heights. Once the Emperor finally makes it back to the fort, and now that he believes he is safe, his terror turns into anger as he remembers how badly he was humiliated. As he walks past his officials, they ask him why he's covered in mud and smells like piss, so the Emperor starts blaming all his soldiers for not being able to win despite all the high-tech equipment they were given. However, he gets cut off when one of the officials spots something outside the window. The Emperor looks up and his state of terror returns as he realizes that the Dragon of Calamity is heading straight for the Empire, but he can't understand how it's still alive when the laser beam should have killed it. He soon realizes that it must have been Saint Sane who revived it, but even if they were able to heal the dragon, there should be no way for them to get the dragon to attack him unless someone was controlling it. He then turns and asks where the beast tamer he hired is, so the official informs him that Master Lude already left the Empire, and the Emperor believes Lude must have betrayed him. He starts throwing a tantrum, so Randius tries to calm him down since yelling won't do anything to help their situation. However, the Emperor just turns on him and starts yelling for Randius to stop being useless and do something to save the Empire. So Randius agrees and walks away with a look that says he's sick of the Emperor's shit. In the meantime, the Emperor orders the others to prepare Kronos because he wants to use it to blast the dragon out of the sky. The officials try to talk him out of it since Kronos is still in the testing phase and it would likely destroy a good chunk of the city as well if they fired it now. However, the Emperor doesn't care and kicks one of them across the room. In his defense, they don't have many other options since the dragon will destroy the city anyway if they do nothing, so he says they don't need to worry about collateral damage, and if necessary, it can just use the mana targeting system to aim it properly. The officials do as instructed, so the entire city goes dark as the Kronos laser cannon is locked into the dragon's mana signature, and the Emperor is confident that the dragon will be destroyed because this is the strongest weapon his empire has ever developed. However, as the laser is fired and heads straight for the dragon, something on the dragon's head parries the laser, causing it to change trajectory. The Emperor is in disbelief at what just happened, and even worse, because they turned on the mana tracking settings, resulting laser beams are now aiming for the Empire's mana generators, and without those, the Empire is completely defenseless. The Emperor starts blaming the officials for this even though he was the one who ordered them to fire the laser. One by one, the officials all decide that they had enough of him and quit on the spot. The Emperor is now left alone as he witnesses the foundation of his entire empire go up in flames. A few moments earlier, the group was approaching the Empire on the dragon's back when all of a sudden, Nor sensed something coming. This laser beam was far stronger than the last, and there wasn't enough time to dodge it either, so Nor ran out in front of them and parried the blast. He was successful, but he unfortunately can't fly, so he ended up crashing into the Emperor's castle. At the same time, the Emperor is currently surrounded by Randius and a couple other knights who are sick of dealing with him. The Emperor asks what Randius thinks he is doing, so he explains that he intends to save the Empire, and to do that, he needs to kill the Emperor. The Emperor cries out for someone to save him, but there's no one left who is willing to follow his orders anymore, so it looks like he's going to be killed for sure. However, just before he gets cut down, Nor comes crashing through the ceiling. He is surprised by how lucky he was to crash land in the Emperor's throne room. Randius raises his sword and asks Nor if he intends to protect the Emperor, and Nor doesn't really care about protecting the Emperor, but he also doesn't think it's right for these knights to kill him. One of the knights tries firing a gun at the Emperor, but Nor parries the shot and very gently puts the Emperor's head to the ground so he doesn't get injured. Randius and his men realize Nor is a skilled fighter, so they all decide to attack him at once. However, Nor parries them all away easily. Randius explains that the Emperor has doomed his country and he needs to atone for it with his life, so one of the knights throws a bomb in an attempt to execute the Emperor. Nor sees this coming, so he once again very gently kicks the Emperor out of the way. As the Emperor's body dangles from the wall, Nor asks why Alvin knights are trying to kill him. However, one of the knights points out that Nor has done a lot more damage to the Emperor than any of them have. Regardless, Randius says the Emperor needs to die, so he throws several more bombs at the Emperor. However, Nor notices ahead of time and gently grabs the Emperor's leg before carefully setting him down on the floor. Nor tells the knights that the Emperor is already pretty old, so why not just throw him in prison and let him die of natural causes, but Randius says they can't afford to do that since the enemy has already invaded the Empire, and they are on their way here with the Dragon of Calamity, so he needs to kill the Emperor immediately to show that they do not intend to fight anymore. However, he suddenly hears someone say that killing the Emperor won't be necessary because he can't suffer for his actions if he's already dead. Rain has just arrived along with the others, and he thanks Nor for all his help, but from this point onwards, he wants to handle things on his own. He asks Lin to go heal Nor since he might be injured from his fall, so Nor and Lin both leave the throne room to let Rain handle business. Rain addresses the knights and once again tells them that they don't need to worry since he doesn't have any beef with them, so no action will be taken to harm them. But the Emperor, on the other hand, isn't going to be so lucky. The Emperor pleads with Rain to spare him, and Rain surprisingly agrees to forgive the Emperor, but only under certain conditions. As a result of the Emperor's attacks, a few of the kingdom's people ended up being crushed under rubble, burning to death in fires, or being torn to pieces by beasts. So as long as the Emperor is willing to suffer the same pain that he inflicted, Rain is willing to forgive him and begin multinational peace talks to discuss reparations needed to end the war. He asks if anyone objects to his plans, and no one is on the Emperor's side, so it is agreed that the Emperor will have to endure the same amount of suffering. The Emperor doesn't understand what they mean since there's no way he could live through all that pain, but Sane assures him that no matter how many times his bones are broken or his guts are cut open, Sane will always be there to patch him back up so he can continue being tortured. And even if he passes out due to all the pain, Kara has his ways of making him conscious again. The Emperor is even more terrified than last time and pisses himself in fear, but Rain feels the need to clarify that he doesn't enjoy torturing people, but he needs the Emperor to thoroughly understand the pain that he inflicted on all those people over a petty grudge. If anything, he is being really lenient with the punishment. While that's going on inside, Nor has just finished getting healed by Lin, and he's feeling much better, but he looks out to the Empire, and he can't help but feel bad about all the damage he caused when he deflected that laser. Lin tells him to not let it bother him since he only did it to protect them from getting hit by the laser, and besides, no one died from any of the damage since the lasers only hit the Empire's mana generators. Those areas have high concentrations of mana, so no one would have been near the generators when they were destroyed. However, their destruction will still have a large impact on the lives of the people here. Just then, Rain, Karu, and Sane return, and they say they've reached an agreement, so from now on, both the Empire and the Kingdom will be focusing on post-war reconstruction. Nor is surprised the war is already over when it barely even started, but since that's the case, he asks what happened to the Emperor. Rain explains that the Emperor has abdicated the throne, his grandchild is likely going to be appointed as the new Emperor, but the kid is only 10 years old. So in the meantime, a guardian is going to be appointed to rule in his place, and it was decided that the knights will be put in charge until the child becomes old enough to rule. Just then, the knights come out as well, and the first thing Randius does is apologize for attacking Nor earlier. He says he is willing to do whatever it takes to make amends for his mistake, but Nor says he doesn't really mind, so there's no need for him to worry about it. Randius is glad Nor isn't upset, but as a gesture of goodwill, he tells Nor that if he is ever in need of help, then Randius and the other knights will spare no expense to assist him in any way they can. Nor tells him there's no need to go so far for him, and if anything, Nor feels like he should be apologizing for all the damage he did to the city. Randius tells him that he shouldn't feel bad about it since it was a direct result of the former Emperor's actions, and besides, there have been no reports of any dead or injured from the blasts, so it's just a matter of rebuilding. The crimes the Empire committed against the kingdom are far more serious by comparison, but Nor still offers to help in any way he can, even if it's just helping clear out the rubble. Unfortunately, the dragon is getting bored, so they all get on its back and fly off to return to the kingdom. But Nor still really hates flying. By the time they return, they are greeted by the king, and he apologizes for making Rain do all the negotiating alone. He wants to be filled in on all the details later, but before that, he needs to extend his thanks to their savior. Rain agrees that Nor almost single-handedly saved the entire capital, so he needs to be given a fitting reward. However, Nor cuts them off and says he doesn't need any rewards. The king understands that Nor isn't materialistic, but he literally saved the entire country, so there's no way the king can just let him go without a reward. Nor understands that it's normal to receive a reward in a situation like this, but he honestly can't think of anything he really wants as a reward though. However, he then looks down at Rollo and announces that there's actually something he would like the king to do for him. The king is happy to hear that Nor actually has a request, so he asks what it is, and Nor tells him that he wants Rollo to be taken care of. He says Rollo is a demon folk child and has nowhere to live after he was abandoned, so Nor would like to have Rollo live in the capital as a regular citizen. Nor had considered taking Rollo in by himself, but he lives a simple life and Rollo would be much better off if he were looked after by a wealthy family. He says it would be great if the king can provide some land and a house for Rollo, and the king understands Nor's request. And that's kind of an issue since the holy theocracy of Mithria has labeled all demon folk as enemies, so if the king accepts Rollo as one of his citizens, then it would put a strain on diplomatic relations with Mithria. He's about to ask if Nor can make a different request, but Nor speaks up and says that he doesn't need anything other than Rollo's security, so if the king intends to offer something else, that he would be better off redirecting those resources towards rebuilding the kingdom. The king is stunned by Nor's persistence, so he can't help but burst out in laughter. Rollo looks up at Nor and has a flashback to the moment he was about to be killed by the frog dragon, and how he hoped to have a better life where he wouldn't have to suffer as much and could maybe even eat delicious food, but he never really expected his dream to come true. Rollo later wakes up in a warm bed and soon sits down at a dinner table with Ains, where she tells him that he will be living with her for the time being. Rollo doesn't have much to say, so Ains tells him to hurry up and eat his food before it gets cold. Rollo is surprised because he hadn't even considered the idea that all this was for him. This is the first time he has ever gotten to eat non-rotten food, so as he takes his first bite, he sheds tears and smiles, saying the food is delicious. This was the end of episode 11. Subscribe to not miss the next part.